Welcome to our trash revolution.
I'm so upset. Oh my God.
The guy!
All right, well, Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. The flag's back. I love that. Look, I'll do a fun little promotion I shouldn't do. So today, first of all, on today's show, huge news, unfortunately tragic news. We've had an F-35 shot down. The pilot's okay, don't worry.
How do we know?
That's what the American military is reporting.
Okay, so we don't know.
Yeah, so $200 billion they want for the war. Of course, new overwhelming evidence that we're gonna put in ground troops. We'll tell you all about that. The part that I shouldn't tease is, so at 5 o'clock, we've got a great revolution for you guys. Sirota's gonna come on, tell you about their master plan to totally screw over this country and make the president basically king. But we also are gonna celebrate some progressive populist wins that we had, so really great. But at 5 o'clock also, Newsmax, I did a pre-taped interview and they tried to do a propaganda segment about radical Islam in America. It didn't go as they planned, because I was their guest, so.
Can I just?
Yes.
I know Newsmax is Newsmax. Newsmax never hid what Newsmax is. But when did News Nation become Newsmax?
Oh yeah, it's honestly like forces friendly to Israel are run almost all the networks, okay? They just do. And so at News Nation, everyone who works there is aware that you have to be pro-Israel.
Look, being pro-Israel is, I guess, fine, right? I mean, that doesn't offend me as much as the constant fear-mongering and bigotry about the entire Muslim population.
But that's kind of part and parcel of Israeli propaganda, right?
Yeah.
The Israeli government at this point is the most bigoted government on earth, and they constantly are pushing anti-Muslim bigotry all across the world, including in America and in our media. You better call them radicals, you better call them terrorists, you better hate the Muslims. The real problem you have is the Muslims. And then you're like, well, Israel's doing something slightly wrong. Anti-Semite, I'm so worried about bigotry. No, I'm done giving a goddamn about fake people concerned about fake bigotry, when in reality the Israelis drive the biggest bigotry in this country by an order of magnitude. I don't know anyone in the right wing that's anywhere near as bigoted as the Israel First crowd. I don't know anyone as racist as the Israel First crowd. It's not even close. All right, anyways.
All right, we're coming in hot.
Yes, we are.
Coming in hot.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Let's do the news.
Let's do it. Let's do the news.
Israel yesterday attacked the South Pars natural gas refinery on the Iranian coast. That was a major escalation. President Trump posted on Truth Social that the US was not involved in the original hit on the South Pars field in Iran.
All of this has been coordinated with the US, and we've heard that from the US side as well, both political and military. So Becky, at this point, I think it's very difficult to believe Trump's claim that the US and he knew nothing about the attack.
Well, President Donald Trump claims that he wasn't notified by the Israelis prior to their strike on the South Pars gas field, which happens to be the largest gas field in the world, meaning that, well, the inflation we're seeing at the gas stations across the country, it's gonna get worse. Now, Israelis do refute Trump's claims here, but Cenk, honestly, it's hard to tell who's telling the truth because I don't trust either side in this entire debacle, but what do you think?
Yeah, so I'm going to save who I think did it for in a minute. I want you to give the facts, and then I'll weigh in on it. But I also want to talk about how much Israel screwed us over with these strikes. I mean, it's a big FU to Americans, to the world, and they knew that it was going to be a double disaster. Why was it a double disaster? We'll explain that too.
Well, on Wednesday night, President Donald Trump posted a lengthy statement on Truth Social saying that Israel, out of anger for what has taken place in the Middle East, has violently lashed out at a major facility known as South Pars gas field in Iran. A relatively small section of the whole has been hit. I mean, we saw the fire. It seems like it was a pretty big deal, but nonetheless, I'll continue. He says that the United States knew nothing about this particular attack, and the country of Qatar was in no way, shape, or form involved with it, nor did it have any idea that it was going to happen. Yeah, of course. Okay, so this gas field, it stretches to Qatar. This impacts Qatar negatively as well. So why would anyone think that Qatar did this? Of course, Qatar didn't do this. The Israelis did it. The Israelis have admitted that they did it. And it is devastating because the Iranians, of course, are gonna retaliate, have retaliated. And how do they retaliate? By hitting oil and gas infrastructure in other Gulf countries. Anyway, let's go back to Donald Trump's statement. He says, unfortunately, Iran did not know this or any of the pertinent facts pertaining to the South Pars attack, and unjustifiably and unfairly attacked a portion of Qatar's LNG gas facility. No more attacks will be made by Israel pertaining to this extremely important and valuable South Pars field, unless Iran unwisely decides to attack a very innocent, in this case Qatar, in which instance the United States of America, with or without the help or consent of Israel, will massively blow up the entirety of the South Pars gas field at an amount of strength and power that Iran has never seen or witnessed before. Wait, who are you mad at? Are you mad at the Israelis? Why are you yelling at the Iranians when the Israelis are the ones who attacked the gas field? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, so let me begin to break it down. Why is it a double disaster? So Israel knows that once you hit Iran's gas fields, Iran is going to counterstrike by hitting some of our allies' gas and oil fields, and that's what they did. That's why Donald Trump was saying Iran didn't know this, that Qatar was not involved and we weren't involved. That's why they struck against Qatar, and that's why why bother saying all that? Because Qatar is a very important ally of ours. Our largest base is in Qatar, and so what Trump is trying to say is, Qatar, we didn't mean it. We didn't mean it. And no one could have known that Iran was gonna strike you back, because obviously Iran was gonna strike Qatar back, right? So he's trying to get that responsibility off of him, a little bit onto Israel, and then mitigate it. So Anna, who do I think what actually happened?
Well, hold on, because I want you to hear from, the, in my opinion, Israeli side of this entire matter. So look, he went on to say that he didn't authorize this level of violence and destruction. Actually, you did when you decided to start an illegal war. That's what you did. So violence and destruction is what comes along with war, especially illegal wars. However, for what it's worth, an anonymous source spoke to CNN and said that the United States was in fact aware of the strike. This was a US-based source. Now, Axios is reporting, I think you should always take with a grain of salt. It's Israeli propaganda, especially when Barak Ravid is the reporter, the name you see on the byline. But Barak Ravid did claim that the US, in fact, went even further than just being notified about it. They allegedly coordinated the plan of attack. And then CNN's Jerusalem bureau chief says that Trump coordinated the attack. Let's take a quick look at that.
Before we saw President Donald Trump's response, we had heard from 2 Israeli officials that the attack was coordinated with the United States. And that, of course, is no surprise. Since the very first opening strikes nearly 3 weeks ago now, Israel and the US have been coordinated on nearly every aspect of this. And that's not only a testament to the relationship between the US and Israel at the political and military levels, it's also simply necessary to carry out these attacks with so many moving parts in the air and in the sea all at once. So Israeli officials say the attack on the South Pars gas field was coordinated with the US, and it was intentionally targeted at gas and electricity infrastructure, not at oil infrastructure, to insulate the attacks and the price of fuel in the United States from Israel's ongoing attacks. The idea that 3 weeks into a war that Israel wants to continue, that Israel would just simply go rogue and carry out attacks that are not coordinated with the US is incredibly hard to believe right now.
Yeah, that's CNN's Jerusalem bureau chief, except I have to tell you the other person involved, Netanyahu, who had his hand up that guy's ass. Because I watched the whole thing and it was like Israeli propaganda after Israel. Israel would never do anything like this. Going rogue and not listening to America. You're a reporter and you don't know how many times Israel's gone rogue and not listen to America, including the time that Donald Trump told them to bring their jets back in the first war against Iran because they went rogue, and you're a reporter? Now, total propagandist working for Israel, which is honestly, I mean, an enormous percentage of our so-called reporters in America. So Barak Ravid, immediately, okay, so 2 things about him, like it's such a tell, right? So Joe Kent resigns and says this Iran war is wrong, there was no imminent threat, and Israel pushed us into it. Ravid's like livid about it. Objective reporter, tweet after tweet. How dare he? This is wrong, not poor beloved Israel. How could you say anti-Semite, 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 right? Come on, come on. And these guys, it's hilarious. They claim to be objective, right? So, okay, that notwithstanding, yes, but who's right and who's wrong? Just because they're representing Israel doesn't mean that Donald Trump is right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we, unlike them, are fair. So upon looking at all the evidence, my best guess, and it's a pretty educated guess in this case, is that no, we did it together. Okay, that Trump and Israel decided to do it together. I don't know why in the world that moron Donald Trump would agree to that.
Why would he do this? Like, does he not understand?
That's why I added the adjective moron.
Yeah.
Because he really doesn't.
He really doesn't.
He's an absolute fool. And so number one, they probably talked him into it by saying, oh, don't worry, Donald, it's gas, it's not oil.
I know, what was that argument? What was that argument?
And then you see that same propaganda reported by the CNN reporter. Oh yeah, the energy is, gas and oil are not connected. The energy market's not connected. Gas is totally different than oil. It's oil and bananas, right? So don't worry, Donnie, shut up and bomb them, right? And so however they convinced him to bomb it, doesn't matter. My best guess is yes, they both did it together. And then the thing that was absolutely critical, and again why Trump's lack of intelligence and homework and knowing anything about the world is so important, because he also didn't realize Iran would counterstrike against gas and oil fields of our allies, because he never expects anything. He has literally said now, since the war began, oh, nobody knew that they could close the Strait of Hormuz. Everyone knew that, right?
That was one of the main arguments against going to war against Iran. But no one could have expected it. He keeps saying, I was shocked, I was surprised that Iran attacked our Gulf allies.
Yeah.
You have US bases in those countries. Of course Iran is gonna attack. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and so when Iran counterattacks, so now you've got oil prices and gas prices and energy prices going up because of both attacks. So it's double the trouble, right? So, but Trump, by the way, another time where he said nobody could have known was, he's like, Iran attacked our bases in the Gulf countries. No one was expecting that. That's the very first thing you should expect. Where are they gonna hit us? Where are our soldiers, the only Americans they can reach? Because they can't reach us in America because there was no threat at all The only place they can reach us is our bases in the Gulf countries. Like really, the lowest IQ person in America could have figured that out. And he said on tape, you could go watch it. Oh, it was a big shock to me. I didn't know they were going to attack back. And Anna, the main point there is all of his advisors are Israel first.
Yeah, they are.
They've all taken millions of dollars from the Israeli lobby. So they keep telling them, oh, don't worry, no, Iran's gonna surrender. When you show them how tough you are, Donald, oh, they'll just cave. And then, but do one more strike. And they didn't hit their gas fields. I can't believe they hit us at all. I thought, they were gonna melt in your presence, Donald, and he believes it. He's such a moron. So, but I don't take any culpability away from him. But last thing about this, Hannah. So Israel says, no, it wasn't just us. It was us and America. Wait a minute. Are you calling Donald Trump a liar? Because Donald Trump very clearly said it wasn't us, it was Israel. Now, whenever they think it's convenient, they love to hide behind Donald Trump's skirt, right? So they're like, oh, Trump wants this war. Are you against Trump? Are you saying Trump was weak, that he was pushed into this war by Israel? You sound like you're betraying Trump. And the minute Trump doesn't go along with their propaganda, which is what we told you, the minute Trump doesn't say exactly what Israel wants him to say, they're like, he's a liar. He did no good, Trump, lying about poor little Israel.
Well, he might be
what
lying.
Happened now, huh?
He might be lying in this. Look,
yeah, he is. I think he is lying.
Yeah,
but notice their code switching with their propaganda about how Donald Trump is the greatest person and should never be criticized, or he's a piece of crap liar who's besmirched poor Israel.
Can I just say, I do think that Trump was shocked that Iran decided to strike US military bases and our embassies in our allied Gulf countries because of the fact that, look, can we just all finally acknowledge, I know we've been acknowledging it, but I wanna get people who have denied Iran's restraint to finally acknowledge that previously Iran showed a tremendous amount of restraint in the 12-day war after Operation Trump's Hammer or whatever he called it happened, right? What was it? Angry Hammer, Furious Hammer?
Midnight Hammer.
Midnight Hammer, okay, it was whatever. After that happened, everyone was thinking that Iran is gonna retaliate viciously, but they didn't. They showed a tremendous amount of restraint. They did everything they could to prevent this war from happening, guys. And I think that Trump mistook that restraint as weakness.
100%. And Iran, that's why Iran is saying now, oh, we're never gonna repeat that mistake. And so what's happened, guys, so there was a big mystery, including like myself, I didn't know, is Iran actually weak? Or in the beginning, were they just trying to avoid war in their first round? Now in this particular war, remember they got their asses handed to them right in the beginning, killed their top 49 leaders. So I thought, well, there's some chance they're idiots, right? And they are actually a paper tiger. As it turns out, so in the beginning they do a lot of strikes, and the first things they knocked out were our radar, so it makes it harder to detect their incoming missiles and drones. Then they let us waste a ton of interceptor missiles over and over and over again. And the graphs show that the number of attacks from Iran went down. So are they playing possum and they're gonna do a trap, or they just are ineffectual? Well, over the last 2 days, the number of missile strikes and drone strikes have gone way up. Turns out they were playing possum. And now they hit Ben Gurion Airport.
Yes.
They hit the largest military base in Israel. And now the bombs are landing because there's not as many defensive missiles.
So 2 other things that were hit recently. The oil refinery in Haifa was hit, and that's a big blow to Israel. Big blow. And on top of that, there is some preliminary reporting on a US F-35 that was struck down by Iran. Now, reports indicate that none of our soldiers have died as a result of this strike. I hope that's true. The reason why I say I hope that's true is because there's a near media blackout when it comes to the reality for our soldiers, for our troops in that region. But this video was released showing the strike. It's very short, but I do wanna show it to you. We can keep my mic up as we take a look at it. So this is the video that was released by Iran showing the strike on an F-35.
So that was our stealth fighter, apparently not stealth enough. So thank God the pilot's okay. I believe him on that.
They're invisible.
Yeah, well, that's literally what Trump said once. He thought it was like Wonder Woman's, plane where it's invisible. It's not invisible to the naked eye. Anyways, so thank God he's okay. The plane landed outside of Iran, so it's okay. But what it does show you is the rumors of Iran's demise have been greatly exaggerated. Now the counterattack has begun in earnest. Strait of Hormuz is blocked, bombs are landing all over Israel, our jets are getting shot down. But the entire time they convinced Donald Trump that it was gonna be super easy, and he was stupid enough to believe it, and now they're reeling him in, and ground troops are next.
Yeah, and I was listening to a report in regard to gas prices right now. In Florida, since the beginning of the war, gas prices have gone up $1 a gallon.
Yeah, that's across the country. 90 cents for the entire country on average. In LA, in California, gas prices are above $5 on average. It's gone up since the war, just in 19 days, 25 to 30% gas prices everywhere.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you start hitting oil fields and gas fields all over the Middle East and you close the Strait of Hormuz.
Brent crude, the international standard, briefly rose above $119 per barrel in the morning before pulling back to $110.80, which is still 3.2%, a 3.2% rise from the prior day. So every day prices keep going up higher and higher and higher as more oil and gas infrastructure, more gas fields get demolished, destroyed, struck. But look, our Secretary of War just wants you to all calm down if you're freaking out, okay? If you're wondering whether or not things are out of control already, don't worry, okay? Take it easy. The US holds the cards. Take a look.
It kind of seems like a trend of Israel apparently pursuing their own objectives over US objectives. I'm not sure if you agree with that, but the president has said he doesn't want to hit Iran's oil infrastructure right now. As you said, the US avoided this on Park Island. Oil's nearing $120. Why are we helping Israel prosecute this war if they're going to pursue their own objectives?
We hold the cards. We have objectives. Those objectives are clear. We have allies pursuing objectives as well. And the truth speaks for itself. I mean, President Trump was very clear about that. Iran has weaponized energy for decades. Israel clearly sent a warning, and POTUS has made it clear, very clear. Iran knows when you hit Carg Island and you hit military capabilities on Carg Island, which is the only thing we hit, we can hold anything at issue, anything. The United States military controls the fate of that country.
Watching his press conferences might be one of the most embarrassing things I personally feel that I've had to go through as a citizen of this country. He sounds like a moron, he acts like a moron, he gestures like a moron. He has no idea what he's talking about, and he keeps talking about carrying out death and destruction. This is not a professional, okay? This is a former Fox News weekend host and a drunk.
So he's talking about like, we control that country completely. Do you? Then why is the Strait of Hormuz closed? Why did they just shoot down one of our stealth fighters if we're completely in control of the country? So the other problem is he says, oh no, our objectives are very clear.
No, they're not.
Wait, are they? Because just a couple of days ago, Donald Trump told our allies when they asked them, what's your objectives? How do we know when the war is over? He said, I'll know it in my bones.
Oh, okay.
So now our objective is getting Donald Trump to feel the right things in his bones. And apparently that's a crystal clear objective, right? I mean, they're all total incompetence here. And when you try to do a war with an actual country that could fight back, and even as we decimated their Air Force and their Navy, et cetera, it's not like they didn't know we were gonna do that. It's not like they didn't know that our Air Force and Navy are much mightier than theirs, right? So they planned ahead, unlike the idiots like Hegseth and Trump. And then now, guys, to the economic stuff, Anna told you the $119 per barrel. Remember, at 120, analysts warn of complete economic destruction in America and the West. This is all as Israel pretends, we are doing this to protect the West. We are your great protectors. And they told us though, it's okay because it'll never get to $120. It was at $119 earlier today, okay? So now it went back down a little bit. It keeps seesawing, but guys, none of the news lately is good news. It's all bad news. So this is disaster. And to Anna's point about we think the pilot's safe, but does the American government lie all the time? Does it cover things up? So for example, there's 13 Americans killed, 150 wounded. Then the next day they come out and go, okay, just kidding, 200 wounded. So wait, are you gonna tell me tomorrow it's 300? They're clearly hiding the numbers because they're embarrassed at the damage that we're taking. This thing is nowhere near over. And finally, if you're wondering, now Trump might be an idiot, but Netanyahu isn't, Israel isn't. They know exactly what they're doing. So why did they wanna bomb the Iranian gas field, which would then lead to Iran bombing the Kuwaiti gas field?
They wanna escalate. They wanna
not just escalate, Anna.
Yeah.
They just opened one of the largest gas fields in Israel.
Oh, great. I hope it gets bombed by Iran.
It's called Leviathan.
Yeah.
And so now that Russia is a little bit out of commission with their pipeline, and now that Israel has conveniently bombed all the gas fields in the Middle East, now when the war is over, they're gonna say, well, I guess you're gonna have to buy all of your gas from Israel. And we just opened up Leviathan, so, oh, what a coincidence, they'll tell us.
Let's go to break before I say something that's gonna get me arrested.
Yeah, so let's go to members on TYT.com. So bloated ego, I think, speaks for now 89% of the country. Anti-Semitism would be hating the Israeli government just because they're Jewish. I don't hate them because they're Jewish. I hate them because they're genocidal scumbags. That is exactly right. We would hate them if they were Germans or Jews or, and in fact, I'm very hesitant to say that I'm again hate the Israeli government or Israel itself because they're Jewish, right? I don't want to say that. If they honestly, if they were a different religion or nationality, we all probably would have said it much quicker, much more fervently, because this is crazy genocidal stuff, crazy. And they're attacking everyone, right? And they've been hiding behind their religion the entire time, and it is disgusting. Jason Von Argo says, Israel probably told Trump, real strong men attack other countries, start with Iran and then maybe go into Cuba. But Jason, I don't know if you're saying that facetiously, but they probably literally told him that. In fact, they told him that he would be, quote, a spectator to history. Like Israel's gonna win this war with Iran, we'll do it without you, and then you'll be a loser who's just a spectator. And he's like, no, I'll attack them with you. So stupid, he's the dumbest guy in the country. Tommy Too Strong says, Israel's intentionally killing anyone who's moderate in Iran, kill anyone who would negotiate and claim there's no partner for peace. This is straight out of their playbook. That is exactly right. They have killed every moderate on purpose because they love war and they hate peace.
Person.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Also, Luck Dragon 2000, thank you for joining me by using the join button below. America 1776 USA, one of our new, more conservative viewers and members love it. They upgraded. You know why? I'm gonna guess. I mean, you could tell me by writing in, brother. But I think we're a little bit of a breath of fresh air that we actually give you the news and not some propaganda version of the news. And we don't tell you things that are just from our point of view. We try to give you the actual facts. Like it would help us, our point of view that Israel's causing all this mess, to tell you, for example, that, oh no, Trump told them not to bomb and they bombed anyway. But our assessment is that's not really true. So we're not going to bias the news to anyone's side, including our side. We're going to give you the straight facts, and we're going to stand up for America. So I love it that you upgraded, brother. You could do that through the join button as well. And finally, John Mark 210, thank you for gifting 5 Young Turks memberships on YouTube. I love this community. We do this show together. Anna.
All right, a lot more to get to. Let's start with this.
As far as $200 billion, I think that number could move. Obviously, it takes money to kill bad guys. So we're going back to Congress and our folks there to ensure that we're properly funded for what's been done, for what we may have to do in the future. Ensure that our ammunition everything's refilled, and not just refilled, but above and beyond.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth refuses to provide a timeline for when this war against Iran is supposed to end. And there are increasing signs that we will, in fact, put boots on the ground. And on top of that, the Pentagon is asking for double the amount of money we were fearful of them asking for. And so before we get to all the details on that and more, Cenk, your 2 cents?
I got a great idea. Why doesn't Israel give us the $200 billion? And remember, they say every time we give them money, they're like, oh no, that actually helps you. Great news, your chance to help yourselves by giving us money. Are you gonna pay for your own war? You're not gonna be surprised to find out when I suggested that maybe Israel should pay for this war instead of American taxpayers, I was called an anti-Semite.
Come on, no, come on.
Of course.
Okay, I don't know if there's any people left in the audience who are hardcore defenders of Israel, but after everything that we have been sharing with you about the detrimental nature of this alliance, please explain to me what we're getting out of this. How is it good to be aligned with a country that sucks the life out of us? But anyway, let's get back to Hegseth, unfortunately. Here's more from his press conference today.
Given the updated degradation and strike target numbers you laid out, how close would you say we are towards achieving the president's objectives? And what is the end game of the operation without divulging any sensitive battle plans?
Well, we wouldn't want to set a definitive time frame on that, but as we've said, we're on plan. It will be at the president's choosing, ultimately, where we say, hey, we've achieved what we need to on behalf of the American people to ensure our security. So no time set on that, but we're very much on track.
You know, George W. Bush was a war criminal. There's no question about it. His administration was full to the brim with war criminals and neocons, the types of politicians and political figures that we here at the Young Turks really don't like. However, Trump is worse. The Trump administration is worse because they add incompetence and unlikability to the mix. What do I mean by that? Dick Cheney was very unlikable. George W. Bush was dumb and incompetent, but there was something endearing about him, right? And he was funny, unintentionally funny.
Yeah, he would say things like, the trick is to keep expectations low.
And he did. He understood that trick really well.
Yeah, and our expectations were really low, and at least it was self-effacing.
Totally,
right?
He was very self-deprecating at times.
Yeah, and so you had a sense that at least he knew he was a knucklehead. Whereas Trump is like, in a shocking turn of events, significantly dumber than George W. Bush, but he has no idea. And that's actually part and parcel of being that dumb. You just don't know. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where smart people don't know how smart they are. They think that they're average. And folks like Trump, who are like at the bottom of the barrel in IQ, since they're that dumb, they have no idea, and they think they're geniuses. So, and that's why there's nothing endearing about him at all. He oozes like everything that's contemptible, in my opinion.
You know, somebody came up to me the other day and said, where's Mandela? I said, Mandela's dead. Saddam killed all the Mandelas. By the way, this is before Mandela was dead. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right.
Mandela had to put out a statement saying, "No, I'm not dead.
I'm very much alive still." Okay. Anyway, let's get back to modern times. So Hegseth also used dead US troops as a shield against any legitimate criticism of the Iran war. This part of the press conference for me personally was the most infuriating. Anyway, take a look.
My 13-year-old son popped into my office last night while I was editing these remarks. He asked about the war and the families I met at Dover. And I looked at him and I said, they died for you, son, so that your generation doesn't have to deal with a nuclear Iran. The Middle East, our ungrateful allies in Europe, even segments of our own press should be saying one thing to President Trump. Thank you. Thank you for the courage to stop this terror state from holding the world hostage with missiles while building or attempting to build a nuclear bomb. Thank you for doing the work of the free world.
There's a video going viral online showing the coffin of one of the fallen soldiers arriving in the United States, and the soldiers' family members go around the coffin. I didn't want to pull the video because it makes me emotional and I don't want to cry on the show. So when you see a video like that and you think about the pain that that soldier's family members are going through right now, and then you hear the kinds of statements being made by our Secretary of War during these press conferences, I don't know how it doesn't make Americans angry. Using fallen soldiers as pawns like that, it really disgusts me.
Yeah, I saw a meme online today of Netanyahu's son partying, and it says Netanyahu's son, and then it's got coffins covered in American flags and it says your son. So that's because Israel won't send in ground troops. They need us to be the meat grinder for them. And so we're gonna send our guys to go die for them. And now we have to pay $200 billion for them. Meanwhile, everyone in our media lies and says, oh, Israel, that is a very small part of this. If you say that's a large part of our consideration, you should be fired from your job and never allowed to speak in public again because you're a terrible anti-Semite. No, you guys are the sickest liars there is. Every national political reporter is a piece of crap that covers for Israel nonstop, never gives you the truth. But it's not just Israel, they cover for all the donors. They're giant liars and propagandists. Anyways, back to Pete Hegseth. He says, son, this is for you. Now remember, all of our money comes from Israel. And since I sold out this country, those dead bodies are to pay for your tuition and your house and your next house. Because of all how corrupt we all are in the Trump administration, all of us have taken tremendous amount of money from Israel. Now, in Hegseth's case, I don't even know how he took it with the politicians like Marco Rubio. At a bare minimum, he's taking $6 million in campaign contributions. Hegseth wrote in his book that America should work with the IDF and the IDF soldiers should be in American streets. So I don't know what his connection to Israel is, but it is significant because that is a mental thing to say. The only way you say that is if you work for Israel. Lastly, look, people are gonna look back at this and mainly the right wing, because the left wing already knows about this guy and the independents are now very clear. They loathe this war and the polling indicates that, right? But it's gonna be the right wing that feels the most betrayed. And they're gonna think that this Hegseth guy is one of the very worst. As he sits there and minimizes the American casualties and keeps covering for a different country while he's pretending to be our Secretary of Defense.
But on top of that, Cenk, I mean, everything you just listed is bad enough. His boastful nature when it comes to inflicting pain, destruction, death on a population of people, it's just, honestly, it's unprecedented when it comes to, the Secretary of State / Secretary of War, historically speaking.
Defense.
I'm sorry, yes, defense, my bad. Secretary of Defense. It's just, it's not a good, I mean, is that how Americans want to be represented?
Yeah, guys, just to be clear, because this is like reality warping stuff that they're doing. Normally, what America does is say, hey, listen, we don't want to go to war. Even if it's a just war, let's say the first Persian Gulf War, we just liberated Kuwait and we got out. We didn't go and invade any other countries. Whatever your feelings are about that war, even then we were like, we're so sorry that we have to do this, but we don't have a choice. And otherwise Saddam's gonna take Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, etc. And we really are brokenhearted about the people that are killed. That's how America used to be. Now we become Israelified. So the Israelis, and we've shown you quote after quote here, hundreds of quotes, come in and go, That's right, we brought death and destruction to Gaza, and now we're taking it for greater Israel and for God, because God wants us to have it. And now we're gonna go into Lebanon. We just gave you the quote just a day or two ago of one of their ministers saying, now we're gonna bring death and destruction to Lebanon.
To literally kill every single person. There shouldn't be a single human being moving around in the area.
So now Hegseth is talking like the Israeli government officials.
Yeah, and it's gross.
Death and destruction, wanton death. Who cares if we murder innocent civilians? There's 175 dead girls in an elementary school. No remorse, no nothing. America shows remorse if we accidentally hit a school. That's a terrible thing. Even Laura Ingraham said, for God's sake, show some remorse.
Show some remorse.
Right.
Take accountability for it. Apologize for it. 168 little girls. The total death toll was 175. We did that. Our country did that, okay? And when I say our country, I'm not talking about the people of our country. I'm talking about our government, our military. And it's just adding insult to injury when you don't take ownership of the mistake and apologize for it. Anyway, let's move on to the funding for this war. We were previously under the impression that the Pentagon was going to ask for $100 billion to help fund the war against Iran. Well, it turns out that anytime you think something's bad these days, you should expect it to be twice as bad, because it turns out that the Pentagon isn't asking for $100 billion, they're asking for $200 billion. Now, let's take a moment to put $200 billion in perspective. By December, Congress had approved roughly $188 billion in spending for the war in Ukraine, according to the US Special Inspector General for Operation Atlantic Resolve. According to Representative Ro Khanna, a Democratic lawmaker, $200 billion would pay for free college for every American, $10 a day, $10 day childcare, or $10 a day for childcare, I guess. 1,000 new trade schools and 40% federal share of special needs education, and a lot more. I mean, that's a sweet thought. Even if we didn't go to this war, let's keep it real, none of that money would be spent on us anyway. But that doesn't mean that I want to spend $200 billion on a war against Iran on behalf of a foreign country. And we all know what that foreign country is. Trump was asked about the amount of money that this war will be costing us during a press conference. So here's how that went.
If the war is almost over, why is the Pentagon going to ask Congress for an additional $200 billion?
Well, we're asking for a lot of reasons beyond even what we're talking about in Iran. This is a very volatile world. We want to have vast amounts of ammunition, which we have right now. We have a lot of ammunition, but it was taken down by giving so much to Ukraine. They gave so much. You know, Biden gave $350 billion worth of cash and military equipment to Ukraine, and he didn't rebuild anything. Fortunately, we have a lot. So we're in very good shape, but we want to be in the best shape we've ever been in. We want to be sure, and it's a small price to pay to make sure that we stay tippy top.
Okay, first of all, it's fair to bring up how much money the Biden administration spent on war. I think that's totally fair. But to say he spent this amount of money and he didn't even build anything, bitch, what are you building? You think the $200 billion is gonna build things? No, it's gonna destroy things, including energy infrastructure likely that is gonna make the situation worse economically for everyone on the planet.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite of the truth, because we were super tough on Joe Biden and he deserved it, but he did pass an infrastructure bill. And it builds highways and bridges, and by the way, internet connectivity across America. It was one of the few good things he did. So he literally built things, and all you're doing is destroying things. And you're not helping the American people at all. What has he done for the American people? He totally forgot about us. Guys, so he cut SNAP. Actually, to be fair, it's not that he forgot about us. He's literally been cutting from us the entire time,
yes,
right?
True.
So 200 billion is nearly the 180 billion that they cut from SNAP. So people are hungry across the country. They're like, shut up. We don't have money for your stupid food. You're just a lowly American. We're sending all our money to Israel to fight these wars. And so remember when they told us that it was gonna be quick and easy? Just like they did with the Iraq war. They said, for the Iraq war, they said it'll only cost $1.2 billion. It costs over $2 trillion. So these liars did the same exact lie, weapons of mass destruction, they're about to nuke us. Oh my God, it's gonna be so easy and cheap. And now they're like, oh yeah, well, I mean, we're already in it. What are you gonna do? Give me the $200 billion. Well, are you gonna give it to any of these other programs? Look, of the two things that Ro Khanna mentioned there, think about how much opportunity for Americans 1,000 trade schools would create. That would be potentially millions of good paying jobs for Americans. Free college for anyone who wants it. Amazing opportunity in America. And every time we ask for it, they go, there's no money. Oh, you stupid progressives. There's no money, because it's for dirty Americans. It's not for beloved Israel.
Can we stop
when
paying
it's
taxes?
beloved Israel, all of a sudden, there's no limit to how much we can spend. That's a stone cold fact. And everyone in mainstream media will say, how dare you? And those are the same liars like Jake Tapper that anytime you propose something for Americans go, how are you gonna pay for that? And if you ask how you're gonna pay for it when it comes to Israel and their wars, they go anti-Semite. I literally tweeted about this. Mark Levin said, deport. He said, deport me because I'm worried about the American people. I tweeted the other day about, hey, why doesn't Israel send in ground troops instead of us? He's like, deport, because I'm being disloyal to Israel. I said, why doesn't Israel pay for the $200 billion? They wanted the war. And Mark Levin says, deport, because I'm being disloyal to Israel, okay?
That's not our country.
Yeah, and then of course
He's being disloyal to the United States of America. How about
100%.
you deport yourself and go live in the country you actually care about?
That's not even close. I mean, I don't know if Mark Levin even likes America. He might actually despise America.
His actions certainly show it.
And he's like, oh, we're gonna bankrupt America? We're gonna get American kids killed? So what? In service of the country I actually love, Israel. And then when I asked, hey, why are we paying? Why don't the Israelis pay? Comments rain in from Israel first. You're an anti-Semite. If you're not an anti-Semite, you would know that Israel deserves the money and not Americans. Sick, disgusting. Yeah. And remember how much they lied to you about how this was gonna be quick and easy. And now all of a sudden, we're sending in ground troops, 2,200 Marines are on their way, and they're now asking for 200 billion. And that's the tip of the iceberg. It'll keep going and going and going until we're completely bankrupt. And then the Israelis will laugh at us as they move on to India and go, we bankrupted those anti-Semites.
So look, we have to keep in mind that we still have a legislative filibuster in the Senate, and right now Republicans who want to pass this supplemental funding bill, plan to do so through reconciliation, which means, yeah, you can pass $200 billion for additional supplemental funding for this war in Iran. However, you need to find $200 billion in cuts in order to pass this through reconciliation. So understand that the American taxpayer will see programs that benefit American taxpayers cut by $200 billion in order to send over $200 billion to defense contractors who will continue getting wealthy off of these disastrous wars that Israel drags us into. We gotta take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the very high possibility of Trump sending boots on the ground. In fact, Netanyahu hinted at it today during a press conference. We'll show you that and more. Come right back.
Because Saddam Hussein killed all the men tell us.
We stay tippy top.
All right, let's go to Super Chat. 00083 says DOD has $1 trillion budget, and now they're asking for $200 billion more than what happened. Then what happened to the $600 billion increase that they just pushed through the effing Congress? And there's no end to the corruption and to the thievery. The point of American politicians are not to represent you, it's to rob you, okay? And our stupid, disgusting, corrupt media keeps that hidden from you. And it pretends that politicians would never be affected by the bribes that they're getting. Disgusting. Absurdly overpower halal patriot says, did you guys know that the Israeli soldiers seized $54.29 million from the Bank of Palestine headquarters in Gaza City. According to an Israeli newspaper on Sunday, also US tourism has declined significantly, losing $30 billion. It's another way that we've lost money from Israel. No, I don't know that story. So guys, let me verify it before you go believing it. It's probably true, but I don't, until I verify it, I don't want to put that out there. But would I be surprised? No, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Look at how much money Israel has stolen from us. $8 trillion in the global war on Israel's neighbors. The whole point of Israel pretending to be our ally is to rob us blind.
I have a little bit of a problem with the framing though. Israel didn't steal the money from us, okay? Our loathsome, corrupt politicians handed it over.
Yeah,
So like, don't take the agency away from our politicians who are corrupt, who are enemies of the American people.
Yeah, no, the politicians are the very worst people in the country, and you should be furious with them.
Well, Mandela's dead.
All right, back on TYT Cenk, Anna Clulo, thank you for gifting the 5 memberships. Now we want to try to help you guys back. So if you got phone service, which everybody does, if you switch over to Noble Mobile, I swear to you, you're going to save a ton of money. Look, if you're paying under $50, okay, fine. But normally I pay in the 30s. Because they give you money back if you don't use your data, but we barely use our data because we're always on Wi-Fi. So tyt.com/switch, nothing on your phone switches. My service is perfect, and I have the same phone, same number. tyt.com/switch, especially if you do it now, they give you $40 back for your first month. You're gonna regret it if you don't do it now because you're definitely gonna save money. You're gonna keep on saving money every month. All right, Anna, what's next?
We should talk about boots on the ground.
We killed their commander, we're killing a lot more, and the Israelis' intelligence on the ground is unbelievable. Hopefully that leads to grabbing that uranium out of some of those destroyed sites. Maybe that'll be something that'll be announced shortly. I just wonder how soon until we decide to grab that Karg Island, where 90% of all the Iranian oil is shipped. We have that. You want the ultimate leverage, we have it.
There it is on the map.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that that's something the president's talked about since the 80s. Everyone knows it, and that would really get their attention. I also think it's interesting that our Marines are coming to town, and they might be, one of the things they might be doing is grabbing an island. Not just the Karg Island, there's a Kishim Island, and there's the Kish Island.
Does that mean boots on the ground?
Well, it would be boots on the ground kind of goes around it. If you're on an island, you're not really in Iran, you're on an island controlling the infrastructure.
Brian Kilmeade, a host over at Fox News, has been working overtime to push for American boots on the ground in Iran, something that is wildly unpopular, not just with the left in America, not just with independents, but based on polling, also very unpopular with the right. Now, once we get those boots on the ground, which I think is definitely gonna happen, the real question is, are these conservative voters going to pretend like suddenly they're in favor of jeopardizing the lives of our soldiers on behalf of a war that Israel has wanted, Benjamin Netanyahu particularly, for 40 years? The real question is, why aren't they fighting their own war? Why do they keep dragging the United States into it? Cenk, before I give you more details on this, your 2 cents.
Yeah, so he makes an interesting point there. Does it really count if it's an island? Because if you put ground troops, I mean, it looks like they're on the ground and that is Iran's territory, but it's just an island. And the Japanese agreed. That's why they said Pearl Harbor shouldn't have counted. Hawaii is just an island.
Yeah, I mean, robbing a bank? Okay, if you do it on an island.
Yeah, it doesn't really count, okay? So guys, later in this story, after Anna gives you the facts, I'm gonna detail for you exactly how they're going to get us to use ground troops, the excuses they're gonna use, and they think they're gonna create loopholes, etc. And then later, we will play that clip for you like weeks from now and months from now and show you that it was exactly right. Why? Because there's a script. I'm gonna tell you about the script after Anna gives you the facts.
Now, before we get to the various scenarios in which ground troops would be used in Israel's war against Iran, I do want to go to this next video featuring Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who makes it abundantly clear, oh yeah, there will be American troops on the ground. Take a look.
It is often said that you can't do revolutions from the air. That is true. You can't do it only from the air. You can do a lot of things from the air, and we're doing, but there has to be a ground component as well. There are many possibilities for this ground component, and I take the liberty of not sharing with you all those possibilities.
Okay, so there you have it. This war can't be fought from the air. You're gonna need boots on the ground. Israel would never send their own soldiers to fight this war against Iran. So that means that American soldiers are very likely going to fight this war and risk their lives. So Brian Kilmeade, might get his wish. Now, according to anonymous sources who spoke to Reuters, the Trump administration is in fact considering 3 possible scenarios. One of them involves deploying troops to the shorelines of Iran to secure the Strait of Hormuz, deploying troops to take control of Karg Island, where 90% of Iran's oil exports are located, which, by the way, okay, if that goes badly, you have to keep in mind, right now the United States is allowing Iran to export oil in order to alleviate some of the economic pain of the limited supply of oil and gas as a result of oil and gas infrastructure being destroyed in the Gulf. So anyway, the third scenario is this: deploying troops to retrieve highly enriched uranium from inside Iran. Let it go, please let it go, please let it go. This was never about nuclear weapons. So stop pretending like this is about nuclear weapons. Let it go. We all know what this war is about. This war is about Israel's desires to topple a regime, and that's it. So why are you gonna risk the lives of our soldiers to go searching for enriched uranium that Israel actually doesn't care about at all? What are we doing? Anyway, on the one hand, according to the sources that Reuters spoke to, the Trump administration allegedly is not thinking about immediately deploying troops. I don't believe them. Because on the other hand, the sources said the discussions on US reinforcements go beyond the arrival of an amphibious ready group next week in the Middle East with an attached Marine Expeditionary Unit that includes more than 2,000 Marines. Goody. And per the Wall Street Journal, the Marine Expeditionary Unit is composed of ground combat unit of Marine infantry equipped with armored vehicles and artillery, an aviation unit of MV-22 Osprey tilt rotor aircraft, I totally know what that is, helicopters and jet fighters such as the F-35B, a command team that coordinates the unit's movements, and a logistics battalion that provides essential support. So anyway, there will be boots on the ground. So exactly what Trump promised, swore up and down would not happen, it's gonna happen.
Yes, okay. So Netanyahu mentioned ground troops, so it's over. When Netanyahu orders ground troops, there will be ground troops. Now, good news for people who watch this show, or people who like it, people who hate it, because we do these so-called predictions, just so you know if we know what we're talking about or we don't know what we're talking about. Can you trust us or can you not trust us? So if it turns out we don't do ground troops, you guys come back and say, see, you guys didn't know anything. And this idea that Israel controls America, absurd. That Netanyahu controls Trump, absurd. No, you said he wanted ground troops and you saw it with your own eyes, but America didn't give it to him. But if we do put in ground troops, just like Netanyahu just ordered us to, begin to understand that we might be right about this. Now, I'll go much further. Now, I know exactly what they're going to do. How do I know it? Because there's a script, guys. So Israel puts out talking points to politicians and the media, and they tell them, here's the propaganda you should do. So first of all, we're likely to go on to islands like Karg Island. Why? Because I already see the politicians and the media figures telling us, well, Karg Island doesn't really count, other islands don't really count. So that's not really ground troops. That's their way of easing you into ground troops. And then they're gonna say, well, we did destroy their nuclear facilities, but they still have some enriched uranium. So we're gonna have to put in ground troops to go get the enriched uranium. There's no other way to get the uranium. You will see that all over your television by reporters pretending to be objective, and news anchors, and you will see it from politicians pretending to be your representatives. And then they will send our boys to go die in Iran on behalf of Israel.
And women.
And women as well. And after they do all this, and you see me saying this today, and we'll replay it for you after it happens, then understand, wait, how did we know ahead of time? Because there's a script. They literally coordinate with the Israelis on what to say all over American media and what to get their dogs in American politics to say, to lie to their own voters to get Israel's objectives in this country. Now you're gonna get to find out who's right and who's wrong. We're telling you well in advance what's going to happen. And when it does, you'll see the whole thing's coordinated. The point of this entire operation is to get America to spend all of its money and its ground troops helping Israel destroy all of their neighbors so that they could be a regional and even global superpower. And how do I know that? That's literally what Netanyahu said a week ago. He said, once we destroy them, we will be the sole regional superpower and we can do whatever we want in the Middle East, and we'll even be a global superpower. Well, it's an easy way to do that if you make Americans pay the bill, both in our treasure and our blood, and that is definitely what Israel is doing to us right now. And by the way, one last thing, Anna. Isn't it weird that not a single representative other than Ro Khanna and not a single member of cable news or mainstream media has discussed the possibility of, wait, why doesn't Israel put in the ground troops? That's not even discussed or debated. It is forbidden to talk about that. When I brought it up on Piers Morgan, immediately everybody started shouting and no one would answer the question. Why doesn't Israel put in the $200 billion instead of America? You're not even allowed to discuss that in Washington. Yet our reporters are objective. That didn't occur to a single political reporter. They didn't ask a single US politician. No, the whole thing is rigged and it's super obvious.
Well, when we come back for the second hour of the show, I want to talk a little bit about what just happened in Lebanon with the seemingly intentional targeting of journalists on the ground. We'll be right back.
Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover, so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories.
We play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention facility to the next. That's what's happening at the border.
The things that got him banned, he's still spreading. So presumably, I think it's reasonable to say that if you allow him back on the website, he's going to do it again.
Any legal voter that we deem not willing to vote for my side shouldn't vote because it'll replace me that's supposed to vote for my side. That's not how voting works. That's not how democracy works.
And while many people following today's political news can get discouraged about the direction of the nation and the world, that's not us. At TYT, we're genuinely optimistic about the future, and with good reason. Today, wide majorities of Americans agree with our progressive stances on issues ranging from healthcare and education to climate, immigration, and wages. The rising generation of young people are also overwhelmingly progressive in their political beliefs and policy objectives, and they're increasingly flexing their muscle as voters and activists to demand change from our elected officials. The traditional mainstream media is mostly AWOL. They, along with the government and many other cherished institutions, have been captured by corporate interests. Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcasting cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines. The antidote is the Young Turks. Unlike mainstream corporate outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma, and we don't carry water for the Republican or Democratic parties. So watch us Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and join the thousands of progressives around the globe who tune in every day for TYT's unmatched, award-winning content and see what it's like to experience a news organization that only answers to you.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show. No,
We'll see. We'll see.
Poor Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? Now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy. Everyone should be lucky enough to have a John Iadarola in their life.
You confused everyone?
Okay, sorry, I thought it was pretty clear.
Take a break now.
You can turn me to Dr. Manhattan as long as I get what Dr. Manhattan's packing, okay?
The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Emilio D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Iadarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons, are about to burst out of his sleeve.
Gun, baby. You know, the two people here said that their moms were both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
That's an improvement. I usually get grandmothers.
The other day, I broke a mic just by being too loud.
Just by talking.
Just by talking.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
I hope that, who they choose for the White House isn't just a borderline Klansman. That's all we gotta hope.
Buy a Ferrari?
Yes, I'm getting to that.
Why wouldn't I want to be on a show with you guys?
You obviously have very scrupulous and discerning listeners in your audience.
Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't.
You're a good bosser.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now. Okay?
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip in the Republicans. See, don't miss the live show.
That's great.
Tell people, if you're a member, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips.
Me, like war, it makes me pound it very hard. I just do it.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna on the online news show. Also with us though, Katrina Rossi, thank you for joining. They hit the beautiful join button below. Guys, by the way, if you join through tyt.com/join, not only can you get a couple of months off of annual membership, but you also can hear us doing your comments and interacting with you guys during most of the commercial breaks. So, and if you're a YouTube member already, good news, it doesn't cost you anything either. You could, because you already paid as a YouTube member, you can go to tyt.com/connect, connect those two accounts and use the stream where you don't get any ads. And I wanna thank Eddie Jamison for gifting a membership on YouTube and John Mar 210 for gifting 5. You guys are awesome, we love you. All right, Anna.
We got to talk about what just occurred in Lebanon when it comes to journalists and reporters on the ground. Take a look.
Attacking journalists is a war crime. Attacking civilian infrastructure is a war crime. But if they think that they're going to silence us, if they think that we're going to stay out of the field, they're very, very much mistaken.
Israel carried out an airstrike that certainly appeared to intentionally target RT journalist Steve Sweeney, the gentleman that you see in the video right next to me, and his cameraman, by the way, Ali Rida, as they were reporting on the ground in Lebanon, which Israel is currently in the process of attempting to annex with the false pretense of disarming Hezbollah. Now, the IDF's war against Lebanon resembles the war crimes that have been carried out in Gaza. In fact, the blueprint is very, very similar. And if you remember what happened and continues to happen to journalists on the ground in Gaza, you have a sense of what the journalists on the ground in Lebanon have been dealing with. Before we get to the details, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, so in a little bit, we want to tell you guys about how Israel has killed more journalists than the rest of the world combined. There are a set of numbers there that are stunning. They are record-breaking terrorists. So we'll explain now.
So Sweeney's reporting focused on how and why the IDF has been bombing infrastructure in southern Lebanon. Take a look.
Well, we're just driving back through Nabatea district where we've been filming over the past 2 hours. the area is coming under pretty heavy and sustained attack by Israeli fighter jets and artillery fire. Now, we believe that they've started bombing the bridges. These are the bridges that connect to the south of Lebanon, that exclusion zone, with the IDF having issued those evacuation orders. Now, they say that they're targeting those bridges to stop Hezbollah from resupplying its forces, resistance forces on the ground there. But in reality, with some 1 million people displaced from the south, that exclusion zone, the evacuation order issued for all areas south of the Zorani River, we're talking about 1 million people. What this is really about is cutting people off from their land, cutting people off from their homes, places that they've lived for generation after generation. And what it does is it makes those 1 million people now become potentially permanently displaced.
So you get the picture, right? Bombing the bridges could permanently displace the 1 million Lebanese residents who have been forced out of their homes in southern Lebanon. Now, the whole plan is to annex southern Lebanon, okay? Allegedly for a security zone, a buffer zone.
Sure.
Yeah, remember, Israel has invaded Lebanon multiple times, 1960s, 1980s. In fact, after invading Lebanon in the 1980s, Hezbollah sprung up as resistance to Israeli aggression and attempts at land theft. But
and then they said, well, because Hezbollah is trying to defend Lebanon, well, then we're gonna have to attack Lebanon. It's always circular logic. And the other side is always the terrorists, they're always the victims. They just happen to wind up with all the land. Well, golly gee, I don't know how that happened. Well, I'm kidding, but that's literally what every national political reporter in America says. We don't know how they got all that land, but they're definitely the victims. They're not at all. So go ahead, tell us more about the terrorists.
So Sweeney and his cameraman were going to the Al-Qasmeh bridge. They were gonna report on the bridge and the destruction there when the footage you're about to see happened. So I wanna warn you, it's disturbing. So viewer discretion advised. With that in mind, take a look.
The border, including the Al-Marj outpost opposite Merkabah, and carried out drone strikes on the Al-Raheb site near Aitar al-Shab. Further rocket attacks were reported against Nahariya and
الإسرائيلي استهدفنا متعمدا عند جسر القاسمية ونحن نرتدي الزي الرسمي.
The second gentleman was the cameraman. Luckily, both of them survived. They received treatment at a hospital. But RT does note that despite the fact that both men were wearing clearly visible press vests, an Israeli aircraft fired a missile at the team as they crossed the bridge, which was located near a military base anyway. And so the two, again, were injured, but luckily survived the strike. Sweeney made a follow-up video as well, showing that he was okay while also responding to what happened.
We've been treated in hospital for our injuries. I had a shrapnel wound in my arm, deeply embedded in the muscle here. That's been taken out, and here it is in this pot here. But what I do want to say is that this was a deliberate, targeted attack on journalists. There's no mistake about it. This was an Israeli precision strike from a fighter jet. What we were doing was we were reporting on the attacks on bridges, which is effectively severing South Lebanon from the rest of the country. 1 million people now internally displaced. This is the real story. It's not about us coming under attack as journalists. What we're seeing now and what we were reporting on is this plan for Israel to ethnically cleanse the south of Lebanon. This is without doubt an attack. This is on the scale or bigger than the scale of the Nakba. This is the forced displacement of 1 million people, which remains a war crime.
So Cenk, some people got upset at me because I think that the Lebanese government should actually do whatever is necessary to defend their country and defend their borders. And if that means temporarily forging alliances with Hezbollah, which seems to be far more powerful than the Lebanese military, then have at it, because I think it's more important to do away with the Israeli aggression against your people and the forced displacement of 1 million Lebanese individuals. I get that Lebanon is a diverse country with different ideologies, and there's a huge population of people in Lebanon who loathe Hezbollah. I get it. Hezbollah is the only thing that's protecting your borders right now from these loathsome terrorist scumbags who intentionally target journalists.
No, Anna, the problem that you're making there is that Lebanon has no right to defend itself. The Palestinians have no right to defend themselves. Only Israel has a right to defend itself. Also, Iran has no right to. Also, all of Israel's neighbors have no rights to defend themselves or to exist. Only Israel has all of those rights. And it sounds like we're being facetious, but that's actually literally
happening. That's the truth. That is
it's literally happening, and it's literally what our politicians here in America pay for and what our media runs cover for. And so give you a quick example to get back to the main point. Governor Josh Shapiro is doing a podcast circuit tour. Now, only friendlies though, okay? You don't want any hard questions. So, and he's saying the real issue is Israel's right to exist. What are you talking about? Israel exists, has Iron Dome, has nukes, has a giant military, and continues to take land. But from his framing, it's poor little Israel that is being attacked.
I have never seen
unbelievable liar.
It is the weaponized victimhood is just masterful. I haven't seen it anywhere else. Armenians were victims of genocide. We don't go around like weaponizing our victimhood in order to steal land. Like, it's amazing. It is amazing. Anyway.
And by the way, not even to Turks who did the genocide, right? And Israel isn't doing it to the Germans who did the Holocaust. If like the Armenians randomly went to Panama and they're like, this is ours. The Panamanians are terrorists. We're the victims. No, but brother, you were the victims of the Turks, not the Panamanians, right? So they have brutally assaulted the Lebanese, the Palestinians, and everyone around them.
Yes.
And then did this wave of propaganda. Now, good news though, we can get journalists in there to give you, oh no, they murdered the journalists that come in to give you the news. Now I'm gonna come back to the numbers in a second, but I do wanna say about this. Why target this particular guy? Because if you find out that they're knocking out the bridges, then you'll know that the whole point is to make sure that the Lebanese cannot come back into southern Lebanon. So that means Israel has always been planning to go in and occupy it and annex it. But because what they're telling the rest of the world, and honestly, I can't use curse words here, but the very immoral people that work in American news won't tell you that they knocked out the bridges. They will pretend that Israel is defending itself and creating some breathing space. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the Germans. A buffer zone, a different propaganda phrase for aggressive imperial fascist wars. So that's why they're like, oh, no, he's showing the world the bridges we're knocking out. Murder him. Okay, now Anna, let's give the numbers for the rest so that people can get a sense of, this is not hyperbole. Like no one murders journalists like the Israelis.
So last month, the Committee to Protect Journalists released a report stating that for the third year in a row, Israel killed more journalists and media workers than any other country during its assault on Gaza. So here's what the report found. An increase in the use of drones to kill journalists, with 39 documented cases, 28 by Israel's military in Gaza, 5 by the paramilitary rapid support forces in Sudan, and 4 by Russia in Ukraine. The CPJ documented just 2 drone killings in 2023. So I just want to note, whenever it comes to Russia's conduct, a near full agreement in Congress that Russia is evil, Russia does terrible things, Russia commits war crimes, and to be sure, killing journalists is a war crime. I'm not minimizing the instances in which Russia violates international law. But how do you make statements against Russia while knowing that Israel has carried out far more war crimes on a more frequent basis? There's more. Of the 129 journalists killed around the world in 2025, the Israeli military was responsible for 86, about 2/3 of the deaths the CPJ found. The death toll is the highest since the New York-based Press Freedom Group started tracking the killing of journalists in 1992. And according to the data reported by the Washington Post, the second highest number of killings occurred in Sudan, where 9 journalists were killed. Mexico was actually the third, with 6 journalists getting killed, followed by Russia and the Philippines. Now, 52 of the 86 journalists killed by Israel were Palestinians in Gaza. The 2025 tally also includes journalists killed by Israel in Iran and Yemen. Meanwhile, 1 Palestinian journalist was killed by a Palestinian armed group in Gaza in October by the CPJ's count. And that was just last year. We're just talking about 2025, guys. Now, if you take a look at the numbers from October 7th, through 2025, you'll notice that nearly 250 journalists killed in the first 3 years of the Israel-Gaza war. Israel has killed more journalists in the first 3 years of the Gaza war than were killed worldwide from 2020 to 2022. 249 journalists were killed from 2023 to 2025 compared to 165 total killings documented worldwide in the 3 years prior of journalists.
Yeah, so I want to just emphasize a couple points and add a couple. So first of all, 2/3 of the journalists killed on the planet last year were killed by Israel. They lapped the world a couple of times, and that's not just countries. That includes terrorist groups. So you take all the terrorists in the world, you take all the countries in the world, they've killed 1/3 of the journalists that were killed. Israel has killed 2/3. Now, who comes in second? As Anna pointed out, is Sudan. So let's take last year. Israel killed 86, Sudan killed 9. So they've killed nearly 10 times the number of journalists. The second place has killed Sudan. Now, there's another important point about that. Do we fund Sudan? No, we don't. But we do fund Israel. Do we fund Russia, who came in 4th? No, we don't fund Russia. I hate what they're doing in Sudan and Russia to the journalists. And we've talked a lot about the Russian journalists falling out the windows and have bathtubs fall on them, etc. But we don't fund Russia. In fact, we fund a war against Russia. Israel says, I get to murder all these journalists, including American journalists. I'll get to that in a second. But you have to pay me. And you have to shut up and never talk about all of my war crimes. And the American people owe us. They owe us infinite money. They want another memorandum of understanding to take at least another $100 billion off of us, and saying that the money must be unconditional. No matter what Israel does, if they kill Americans, they kill reporters, they kill hundreds of thousands of people, nothing matters, genocide doesn't matter. You must unconditionally give your money to Israel, otherwise you're all anti-Semites. So now, okay, let's break it down a little further. You have, in terms of accountability. Now, when the Saudis killed a reporter that wasn't an American, Jamal Khashoggi, but he worked for an American organization, Washington Post, everyone was rightfully outraged, and we were outraged, right? They dismembered him, and there was an attempt to put severe consequences in Saudi Arabia for that one reporter killed, and there should have been. Shireen Abu Akleh is an American journalist, and Israel assassinated her. Even CNN and New York Times agrees that was an assassination. They shot her in the neck, huh? People getting shot in the neck. Okay.
A sniper, yeah.
Yeah, a sniper from hundreds of yards away shot her perfectly in the neck between her press vest and her helmet, murdered her, executed her for the crime of reporting on what was happening in Gaza. So did we ask for accountability? No. The American government says you're allowed to kill any reporter you want. You're allowed to kill American reporters. Israel has killed 10 Americans in the last 3 years in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Our government has not asked for any accountability. Finally, among the 249 reporters that they killed, do you know how many Israeli soldiers were arrested for those murders, including the executions? 0. That's the Israeli government saying, attaboy. That was not a mistake. We meant to murder those journalists. That's why we haven't punished a single person who did it. My guess is they probably got rewards, because Israel is run at this point, tragically, by a bunch of terrorists. And so they have outshined all the other terrorists in the world. I started this segment that way, and I told you it wasn't hyperbole. These are facts, and you can look them up. You won't hear them on cable news because those guys work for Israel. But you could look up every one of these facts by the journalists that have not been murdered by Israel.
And the targeting of journalists in Gaza continues, by the way. I don't want anyone to think that the slaughter in that enclave, in that part of the world has ended. It has not ended. Recently, Israel targeted yet another Palestinian journalist. This one, I mean, all of it is just so horrific. Israel executed Amal Hamad al-Shamali in Gaza today. This is an older post on X. Amal was a mother and a journalist documenting genocide. She was a voice for her people, not a combatant. Keep in mind, Israel is still dropping bombs in Gaza. Don't stop talking about Palestine ever. So she apparently worked for Qatar Radio, and she was killed by an Israeli strike on tents, sheltering displaced Palestinians. She has a little girl, and I don't know, this next video is really hard to watch, but her little girl is experiencing extreme grief, learning about her mother's death. Take a look. We fund that.
Yeah, guys, I know it's super tough, but you should force yourself to watch some videos of people that Israel has murdered ruthlessly, mercilessly, and with our money. I watched a video of a 3-year-old that they murdered in Lebanon. It is unbearable. It's unbearable that our disgusting politicians force us to take our hard-earned money and give it to these terrorists, and then pretend that the people criticizing the terrorists are the bad people. Like somehow they have hatred in their hearts, but the people who murder the 3-year-old, the people who murder more journalists than the rest of the planet combined ×2, they're not guilty. But the people who complain we shouldn't send money to fascists, we're the bad guys, and that's what our politicians and our media tell us. No, it's time for a rebellion inside America because we are occupied by Israel, and I can't bear it. This country's about freedom, and it's about justice, and right now we have no freedom and we have no justice. And the rebellion I'm calling for is a political one. Almost all the incumbents are supernova toxic. They're literally the very worst of us. Vote out all the incumbents, and if the media tells you about their beloved experience and how you shouldn't do that, do it twice as much. If you think, oh, my Democrats are good guys, my Republicans are good guys, no, they're not. They're all terrible people, the most immoral people in the country, and they finance this genocide, the murder of reporters, the murder of children. Our money was spent to kill over 20,000 children in Gaza. I don't want to fund fascists, I don't want to fund terrorists, and they shouldn't put this moral stain on a good country like America. All right, we got to take a break, guys. We'll compose ourselves and we'll come back. Joe Kent went on Tucker Carlson's show, and he wondered why they stopped an investigation of Charlie Kirk's murder. So they can kiss my ass, all the Israeli ass kissers, come and kiss my ass. We're gonna talk about it, and they're gonna say, oh, how dare you? Why did the government shut down the investigation of Charlie Kirk's murder? That is super effing strange. We're gonna discuss that when we come back.
Tucker Carlson, a terrible friend.
Let's start with Super Chat. Micro Dave says, where are all the evangelicals while thousands of Christians are being driven from their homes in Lebanon? Well, a couple of them did show up, not evangelicals, but good Christians like, amazingly, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tom Massey, Tucker Carlson. But our press is busy attacking those good Christians and saying, you should be bad Christians. You should be hypocrites, pro-life. That's just for politics, so you can get tax cuts. When Israel murders and murders children, you have to fund it. Otherwise, you have hatred in your heart. No, you have hatred in your heart. anyone supporting Israel at this point after all of these genocides and all of these wars. You want to talk about hatred in your heart. You want to talk about bigotry. All the Israeli supporters, they don't care about Muslim lives at all. They're the biggest bigots there are. So what, just murder the Muslims. So what, right? I can't stand them. Trojan writes, and they need $200 billion because they're about to attack. Dems will vote for it once the boots are on the ground. No, brother, the Democrats will vote for it today. I guarantee you it passes. And if they need Democratic votes, I guarantee you that they get exactly the number of votes they need because it's rigged. Schumer says that he was elected to be the savior of Israel. Ted Cruz, who's a Republican on the other side, says the same thing. Yeah, because once you get bribed by Israel, you serve Israel. It's not complicated. The only idiots that miss it is every political reporter in the country. What a bunch of liars, losers. Reflector is Spirituoso. Thank you for the donation, Skype P-Dog. Thank you for the Skype Dog. Thank you for the donation on Super Chat. Damn it, I wanted to read more. We'll be back.
I've got an eclectic reading list.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Look, at the top of the hour, we're going to celebrate some populist wins in primaries. David Sirota is going to come on and tell us about how they rigged this entire system to serve the corrupt. Don't miss that. And then afterwards, I'll read more of your comments, guys, in the bonus episode for the members. So hit the join button below or tyt.com/join to become a member. Last thing, just south of history wrote it on Super Chat. I hope all our daughters watch Anna and feel inspired. I'm so thankful for her courage, intelligence, and grace. You're not alone. I'm also thankful for that. All right, thank you guys, we appreciate it.
I appreciate it, thank you. All right, let's get to our next story.
We don't know what happened with Charlie Kirk, and by no means am I saying like the Israelis did this or any of that. But I'm saying there's a lot of unanswered questions there. Charlie Kirk is killed publicly in a very horrific way, and we're not really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors, and he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran. He was in the Oval Office in the lead up to the 12-day war.
Your office had been blocked from investigating his murder. That does not make sense to me.
Joe Kent, who just resigned from his post as the director of national counterterrorism, or as the head of the National Counterterrorism Center, had a lot to say about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and more importantly, the lack of robust investigation that he is alleging is a huge problem when it comes to the death of Charlie Kirk. Cenk, people like Candace Owens have been made out to be completely insane because she isn't buying the official narrative. She's doing her own investigation, which of course she's not a professional in this field, so she's going to run into some weird, wacky theories. But do you begrudge someone for not buying the official narrative?
No, so I don't know what happened because we don't have access to the evidence that the government has access to. Candace doesn't know what happened. But when reporters tell us, shut up and bow your head to the government, that tells us that it's definitely Tyler Robinson. Well, I normally don't do that anyway. But when the director of the National Counterterrorism Center says that people inside the government blocked an investigation of the murder, now I don't believe anyone at all. And if you tell me, Cenk, that's conspiratorial, I don't care. You can stuff your conspiracy theory accusations up your ass. Okay. So no, we should find out what actually happened, and maybe Joe Kent's telling the truth, maybe he's not. But right now, if he's telling the truth, then they're hiding what happened to Charlie Kirk, and you should be livid about that.
So I personally don't think he's lying, because what do you get out of lying about this? But nonetheless, here is Joe Kent describing the final interaction he had with Charlie Kirk before he was killed.
The last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in
in the West Wing in the stairway, and I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and it's a small. You've been in the West Wing. It's small. It's a tight space, and he said, "Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran." Very loudly.
He was single-minded.
And he walked off, and he went, I believe, into the Oval. So when one of President Trump's closest advisors, who is vocally advocating for us to not go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis, and then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and we're not allowed to ask any questions about that.
So in the aftermath of Kirk's assassination, Kent was tasked with investigating what happened. Fascinating. So what's even more interesting is how quickly that investigation got shut down. Take a look.
What do you mean when you say we're not allowed to ask any questions about that?
We've been told that this individual, Robinson, is a lone gunman, and maybe he is. But the investigation that I was a part of, the National Counterterrorism Center was a part of, we were stopped from continuing to investigate. And the FBI will say that they stopped that because they wanted to turn everything over to the Utah state authorities. Everything's going to trial. It's very, very sensitive. But there was still a lot for us to look into that I can't really get into. But there was still linkage for us to investigate that we needed to run down. And I'm not making any conclusions. I'm not saying
I don't think you are.
Because of this happened. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there's unanswered questions. We know the pressure because of the text messages that have been made public that Charlie was under a lot of pressure from a lot of pro-Israel donors. And again, we know Charlie was advocating to President Trump against this war with Iran. And we knew at the end of the 12-day war, at the end of Midnight Hammer, that the Israelis were going to come back and ask us to go back to war again.
Right.
So we have a lot of data points between Butler, the assassination attempts against President Trump, the breaches of his security, what happened to Charlie Kirk.
So the allegation that Kash Patel shut down the investigation that was being carried out by the National Counterterrorism Center because he wanted to hand everything over to local authorities in Utah really makes no sense if you're wanting to look into possible foreign ties to an assassin, right?
Yeah. So, guys, this is not a little weird.
This is very weird.
When your counterterrorism center says we'd like to investigate some leads that we have about this enormously important political assassination in the country, and the other part of the government says, no, you're not allowed to investigate counterterrorism. You're not allowed to investigate anything about this murder, and you're to shut up and believe the official story. And they say that within the government. Nah, no, that is incredibly strange. And if you see some idiot so-called reporter telling you that's not strange, you should make sure to never listen to them again.
Now, after he decided to step down from his position, we're now learning that there has been some sort of investigation launched against him. We don't have too many details about it, but apparently it's an FBI investigation according to 4 sources who spoke to Semaphore. They stated that the investigation began prior to Kent's resignation. One source said the investigation has been ongoing for months. Now, why? Why would they be investigating him? Allegedly, they suspect that he had been leaking from within the administration. Kent is accused of leaking confidential information. So look, here's what I think about the notion of Kent being a leaker, and he might be, who knows? I think the administration does a pretty good job showing us what they are. They don't really hide it. I mean, have you watched one of Pete Hegseth's press conferences? Total disaster. You don't need to leak anything. You guys show us exactly who you are every single day. Yeah. Total mess.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go further. So we get pro-Israel leaks nonstop from the government. Barak Ravid is a pro-Israel leak machine. So how come none of his sources are being investigated? Oh, if you're in favor of Israel, no one gets investigated. But if you're concerned about Israel, oh, we're gonna have to launch a big investigation. Did he do it? Who knows? It doesn't matter. Because even if he didn't do it, would the Israeli forces inside our government start an investigation? Absolutely. Because if you're, and look, Tucker said the other day that they apparently they're considering an investigation and an arrest of him. Oh, it's just coincidentally happens to be all the people opposed to war. and opposed to Israel. And our moron reporters go, no, that's a coincidence. It's always a coincidence, right? And it's also a coincidence that the million pro-Israel leaks have never been investigated, right? So, all right, now let's talk a little bit more, because Kent also mentioned that the shooting of the president, Donald Trump,
right,
when he got shot in the ear in Butler, there was also irregularities there.
Right.
Okay, and there was irregularities about a guy that they arrested a couple of days beforehand.
Actually, I covered some of those irregularities from what we were hearing from the federal government and what the reality was on the show a few months ago. And Tucker Carlson did a deep dive on it. And so my coverage was based on Tucker Carlson's deep dive. But one of the things that they were saying about Crooks, Cenk, was that he had no online footprint whatsoever, nothing at all. Turns out, no, he had a lot of activity online. Why were they lying to us about that?
So, wait a minute, that guy took a shot at Trump. And then there are people inside the government going, no, we're not talking about that. Don't ask questions about that. No, we get to ask questions about anything we want. And how incredibly strange is it that in the Trump administration, they're bottling up an investigation about shooting Trump?
So weird, yeah.
If you're, guys, the reason I get so frustrated by cable news and legacy media is they look at that and they go, no, that's not strange. All right, and by the way, here's another thing that happened, according to Kent. Trump ordered the release of the JFK, RFK, and MLK files, and he says they didn't release them all. There's really sensitive information in there that has not been released, even though in this case, Trump ordered the release. They just ignored the president. They said, no, that stuff we're not releasing. So who's in charge of this government? Look, before, and I give the right wing credit on this, I thought the talk of deep state was.
No, they were so right. You guys were so right. You're so right. I wish I understood what you were talking about, okay? But now I get it, and I really get it, and they were right.
So, yeah, I was gonna say I thought you guys were crazy, and no, you're not crazy. I know that there was for example, there's other countries that have deep states. That's a real thing. Like in Turkey, there was like this cult that had a deep state. In fact, they were run by a guy out of Pennsylvania. He's passed away now. And him and Erdogan had a big clash, etc. He had infiltrated the military, prosecutors, judges, even teachers. So you can, it is possible in a government. And now we're finding out from people that were inside the government, there's folks saying, ignore the president's order, ignore a deeper investigation into who shot the president, and ignore and shut down your investigation of who killed Charlie Kirk. Well, if that ain't a deep state, I don't know what is.
There's one other thing that Kent brought up that's related to all of this. So let's go to D4.
They're not hiding something in the Kennedy files, in my opinion, because it's not like the assassins wrote down on this day we're gonna kill JFK and they put in a file at CIA or FBI.
Right.
Like that didn't happen. So I don't really think there's anything that's in particularly would be earth-shattering inside the files themselves. The system doesn't want to get us used to things being rapidly declassified. They don't want a president to be able to come in and say, here's an executive order, and I said declassify it because the people demand it, and it happens like that as fast as it could happen. They don't want that to happen. They want to condition us that okay, the president of the American people elected, he may have, come in and lawfully given us an order, but there's a process here. There's an interagency process. Everyone gets to check to make sure there's nothing still classified or still ongoing, even if it was from, 1963 or even further back, because again, they don't want us conditioned to, we can just have access to this information.
Let's dismantle the federal government.
No, you can't dismantle the federal government. But what you can dismantle is things like the CIA, which apparently don't work for America. That is super dangerous. When you have a CIA and potentially FBI that works for either elites within America, but not the American people, or works for a foreign government, or whoever else they work for. But we can't find out, because even if a president orders an investigation, they just block it. And so I want you to be clear, Joe Kent didn't say that there was nothing wrong with the JFK assassination. He said, even if there was, they wouldn't have written it down. They wouldn't have been like, oh yeah, but I remember when I was at the CIA and I murdered JFK, right? They're not gonna write that down. But even so, he's like, no, they're not gonna let you know the whatever is in the files, just as a show of power. The American people are not in charge. This is not a democracy. Whoever is running the government from within the government is in charge.
All right, our friend Peter Schiff is back in the news, tearing Trump's economy apart. We'll tell you what his latest complaints are when we come back.
All right, let's go to YouTube members. Dark Sky Winter says, nice of them to not hit the hospital. Don't worry, the hospitals are coming. They've started hitting hospitals in Lebanon, Israel. That's what they always do. Oh, we do not kill civilians on purpose. Hit the hospital, hit the school.
They're hitting hospitals in Iran.
And they're hitting hospitals. They hit hospitals everywhere because they're terrorists. Bridget Smith says, there's money for war, but heaven forbid we have healthcare or cancel student debt. Remember how much they howled when Biden was trying to cancel 10% of student debt? Like, oh, there's no money, there's no money. Also on MSNBC, not just on Fox News and CNN. But the minute there's war, they're like, of course, $200 billion. Of course, shut up everybody. This is for beloved Israel. Killjoy 100 says, Trump did the Admiral Akbar maneuver. It's a trap, referring to the ground troops. Firo Florida man says, Kardashians aren't a good representations of female Armenians. Anna is, though.
They be selling their Spanx up in Israel?
No, yeah,
It's
okay.
Spanx, right? That's what they call it.
I think
no,
so.
Slims or?
Who cares? Who
Yeah,
cares?
seriously, who cares?
Mr. Scruffy 04 says Operation Hegseth Hammered is still ongoing. Free Taco First says the flag is back, referring to the flag behind us. Progressive Entropy says these are on Twitch. Bro, America literally does whatever Israel commands. That is definitely true. Now TYT.com, Doodle Dragon Imran also said the flag is back. I love it. Wishing you a wonderful Friday Eve. Thank you.
It's Skims, not Spanx. Spanx is okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm done. What am I gonna do? We'll be back.
It's a trap.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Ruby Nala. Thank you for joining. Really, really appreciate it.
It's a beautiful
Love
name.
you guys. All right, Anna.
Let's talk about the economy.
The economy is a disaster. Look at Q4 GDP growth of just 0.7. We're headed for recession. In fact, for all of last year, GDP grew just 2.2%. That's 20% below the 2.8% from 2024. But it is slowing fast. And all of this was before the war. Now that Trump started a war, the situation is going to get a lot worse. The national debt just went past 39 trillion, I think, yesterday. I think we're going to blow through 50 trillion over the next 3 years because recession, rising interest rates, war, and a housing crisis are going to send our budget deficits through the roof.
Our buddy economist Peter Schiff, I don't know how he keeps getting invited back on to CNBC, but I'm glad that they have him back on because and Fox, because he speaks the truth. Oh yeah, he's on Fox right there. But he's usually on CNBC, and he doesn't hold back when it comes to tearing apart Trump's economy, which I appreciate. Now, before we get to some of the details of his argument, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, so he's definitely right about inflation and about slowing down of the economy, which means, that means we could hit stagflation. Guys, as bad as things are now, it looks like things are about to get much worse. So let's give you the facts on it and then come back and analyze how bad it's gonna get.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what Peter Schiff is absolutely fuming about. And so, look, before we go on, it's really important to do this disclosure, as we do anytime we cover a story involving Peter Schiff. He does gold investing. He runs a gold investing company, meaning that he does have a financial incentive to encourage people to invest in gold. That being said, he speaks the truth when it comes to our current economic situation and what we have coming ahead. Now, That disclosure aside, here's more from his appearance on Fox Business.
None of the FOMC members are voting for a hike, and that's what we need. But they're afraid to deliver a hike because of what it would do to the markets, to the economy. You know, when you talk about the resilience of the American consumer, it's all based on the ability of the consumer to go deeper into debt, to buy more products he can't afford, and that we didn't help produce. And it's all about leverage. And so the Fed understands this. And in fact, if the Fed starts hiking interest rates, one of the most impacted is the U.S. government itself, because the cost of servicing the debt explodes as interest rates go up. Meanwhile, look at the housing data that came out today. Home sales are collapsing because real estate prices are at least 30% overpriced nationwide. And we are on the cusp of a decline in housing prices at least as great as the decline in 2007, 2008 that precipitated the 08 financial crisis. And I think the economy is even more leveraged now than it was then.
So there is a lot to unpack from what he just said there, but let's start with interest rates. So the Federal Reserve just yesterday voted to leave interest rates unchanged. So they're at 3.5 to 3.75%. Now, specifically, Schiff mentioned the FOMC, which stands for the Federal Open Market Committee. These are the individuals who vote on whether or not they increase, decrease, or keep the interest rates where they're at. Now, 11 of its 12 members voted to leave interest rates unchanged. Only one individual voted to lower interest rates. Now, Peter Schiff believes that the Fed should be raising interest rates in order to keep inflation from spiraling out of control. And he also discussed US consumer debt. But before we get to consumer debt, Cenk, which is disastrous, your thoughts about interest rates, because there's no winning, if you ask me.
No, they should keep them where they are.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so look, I'm not the definitive expert on it, but I know that lowering the interest rates as you're about to have significant, have started to have significant inflation already, it's over. You shouldn't lower interest rates, but you're about to have much worse inflation. Because again, remember guys, oil isn't just about gas prices. Gas prices affect the cost of all goods in two different ways. One is oil also goes into plastics and many of the other products that we buy. But second of all, when gas prices are higher, it also increases the cost of transporting the products to the stores, to your homes, etc. So it increases prices for all goods. So this war is a debacle, and Peter Schiff is right. We were already headed in the wrong direction. Now we're like in hyperdrive in the wrong direction. No way you should cut rates. In terms of increasing rates, I'm worried that AI has begun to cause an unemployment apocalypse, and we're at the tip of that iceberg. So if you increase rates, I'm worried about how it's gonna slow the economy too much. So we're kind of stuck. We're now in an interest rate quagmire, partly because of the quagmire that Trump put us on in Iran.
So when it comes to consumer debt, and remember, interest rates are important when you're considering consumer debt as well. Well, total consumer debt in the United States did hit a record of $18.8 trillion at the end of 2025, according to data from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, incorporating all types of debt. That includes credit card bills, auto loans, and mortgages. Now, mortgage debt is not toxic debt, right? Mortgage debt, you have an asset, you can sell that asset, maybe you've built equity. But why don't we focus on, credit card debt specifically, okay? Because if you look at credit card debt, the New York Fed reported that credit card balances hit a new high of $1.28 trillion, and that's 5.5% higher than the year prior. This is not good. This is a disaster, especially when you take into consideration what the interest rates are on credit cards. Okay, much higher on credit cards than it is when it comes to what the Federal Reserve sets interest rates at. We're talking 20, 25%. And so a lot of Americans are struggling right now. They're not making enough money to make ends meet. They're not getting much support from the federal government. And so what are they doing? They're just putting their life essentials on credit cards. It's really bad. So speaking of debt, the US national debt, as you heard Schiff say in that video, did hit a record $39 trillion. The Congressional Budget Office projects that in 10 years, the nation will annually be spending more than $2 trillion just on debt service. The national debt will exceed $40 trillion by the end of October, the Peterson Foundation projects. And finally, there's the housing market, which Schiff also touched on. So mortgage rates are creeping up as the war drags on when it comes to mortgages specifically. So the average 30-year fixed rate mortgage rose to 6.22%, up from 6.11% a week earlier. Mortgage rates dipped below 6% in February, days before the war started, but they have been rising since then. And that is on top of a historically unaffordable housing market. In 2025, for instance, the average age of a first-time home buyer was 40 years old, which is a record high. Home prices have never been as high as they are right now. They're at records. And with all that aside, let's find out how Americans feel about the economy right now.
Voters on Trump and the cost of living. You go back when he was reelected back in October of 2024, he was beating Kamala Harris by 3 points on the cost of living, right? Look at his net approval rating now. Woo! Down underwater we go. His net approval at a record low, 41 points below water. You can't win when you're at 41 points below water on the cost of living.
What about independence?
Yeah, what about independence? You think this 41 points below water is bad? Take a look at independence. It's even worse. I mean, 60 points underwater when it comes to Trump and the cost of living among independents. Again, a record low. You go back to October of 2024, he was winning on this issue over Kamala Harris by 11 points. Look at that switcheroo. That is a 71-point switcheroo in the wrong direction.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care. You think Trump cares? Trump only thinks about himself. You think he cares about the Republican Party? He doesn't care about the Republican Party.
No.
Revel in it, Republicans. Revel in providing cover for this absolute demon. Anyway, go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, he does care about his own ego though, and he's going to leave the White House in humiliating fashion. So, okay, first a quick tangent. Yesterday, CNN and Harry Enton, who I otherwise like, did this absurd poll where they showed the people who still call themselves MAGA, 100% of them support Trump.
That was embarrassing. I can't believe you guys actually aired that poll. That was genuinely one of the most embarrassing segments I've seen on cable television, and that's saying a lot.
You guys get it, right? It's circular logic. So they say, if you like Trump, tell us if you like Trump. And they go, wait, I just told you I like Trump. 100%. So they did that in the context of war. Why? Because they want Trump to stay in the war, and they don't want Trump getting rattled that he's losing his base when he supports Israel in the war. Now, when they turn to the economy, all of a sudden they let you in on the most important fact. He's lost all the Trump voters who were independents. They're gone. So his base is annihilated because he won because of the independents that's voted for him, right? And so, and by the way, and people who used to call themselves MAGA but no longer do, who are all over online writing MAGA's dead, right? So that it was incredibly deceptive yesterday. Today, they level with you. Oh yeah, Trump's lost everyone, okay, in terms of the independents. All right, now let's go to the heart of this issue on the economy. Number one, I want you to understand how devastating that $2 trillion is in interest payments we have to make every year. Because if the economy heats up too much, like meaning like inflation, we need to raise the interest rates at the Fed, what we were just talking about, right? And so, and you would raise the interest rates if the inflation is getting too high, like we did recently, right? And inflation is going to get higher and higher as we're talking about. But when you raise the interest rates, that makes paying off your debt much harder and more expensive. So you're gonna have to pile a whole new set of debt on top of that. Now, when you look at what did we spend the money on? Well, we spent 8 out of the 39 trillion on the global war on terror, as an example. But that was not global at all. It had nothing to do with South America or Australia or East Asia or Europe. it was only against Israel's neighbors. That's just $8 trillion out the door on that alone. And now we have a new war, part of the global war on Israel's neighbors. Now we're asked to put in another $200 billion, and that's just the beginning. That's the tip of the iceberg. We're about to put in ground troops based on all the things that they're saying. We haven't even put in the ground troops yet, and they're asking for $200 billion. So you're gonna add a couple more trillion on that. And what's amazing about that is Israel doesn't borrow the money from China to pay for its own wars and the genocide and the land conquest that they're doing, etc. They say, no, America, you have to borrow the money from China and you have to give it to us for free, and not only give us that money, but pay the interest the rest of your life, okay? So you and your kids and your grandkids will pay the interest that for the money we borrowed to give to Israel, both in direct payments of $330 billion and in trillions of dollars in the wars that we're doing for Israel. So this is the great American robbery. And it's not just about Israel, guys. All the donors have robbed us. The oil companies to this day get billions, tens of billions in subsidies. Why are we giving the most profitable companies in the world our money? Because they gave same exact reason for that we're giving it to Israel. Because the lobbyists for the oil companies bribed our disgusting politicians who are the very worst and most immoral people in America. And because of those bribes, they're like, oh great, no problem. Here's American taxpayers' money. Israel, oil companies, and wait till you get to big pharma. They've ripped us off of trillions of dollars. And the people who helped them do that is the scumbag incumbent politicians. Vote them all out. Now, unless their name is Ro Khanna or Tom Massey, or you know with absolute certainty that they're not betraying you, they are. Just because they're in your party doesn't mean they're good guys. No, the people in your party, whichever party it is, are also disgustingly immoral. You think they don't know everything we just told you? They know, and they screw you over on purpose anyway. So lastly, guys, anecdotes. Every person I'm talking to, barber, Uber driver, dry cleaner, they're like, all business is slowing down. And they started slowing down before the war. Now afterwards, slowing down more. We're in for a world of hurt here. And our politicians aren't gonna help us. They're the ones betraying us. So normally I'm optimistic, but I'm sorry to report there's a lot of bad news coming. All right. We've got the revolution coming up next. Anna's gonna be away next week. Have a great vacation. We're gonna need you energized and back. Everybody stay right here. We're gonna tell you how things went wrong. We'll be back. All right, welcome to the revolution, guys. We got a great guest coming up in a couple of minutes for you guys, but I wanted to update you on a whole bunch of stuff and a lot of good news, okay? First, we want to find out more about you guys, and here's what I mean by that. I'm curious where our audience is. Now, Young Turks, we're obviously historically been on the left, I'm on the left, Anna doesn't want any labels. And revolution is supposed to bring left, right, middle together to try to get our government back. So, we have 3 super simple questions at tyt.com/you. And already we've gotten a bunch of folks that are there, both members and non-members. We want both of you to participate. We're very curious about, what's the political affiliation of our members and people who watch the show who aren't members. Takes about, 15 seconds to do it. It's the easiest questions, but it really helps us. tyt.com/you, that's YOU. To do that, we appreciate it. And I was supposed to do a second Noble Mobile read, so I'll tell you guys. And it really does save you money, guys. So real quick, if you switch your cell phone service for me, perfect service, nothing on my phone changed. I pay in the 30s, the max you can pay is 50. Please save yourself some money. Go to Noble Mobile, tyt.com/switch, tyt.com/switch, and you're gonna get $40 off now if you go now, because they've got that from the first month's bill. All right, so now I want to tell you guys about some good news. So we are trying to help some populist candidates, and we've talked to different kinds of candidates, ranging from populist to more establishment. So wanted to celebrate some of those wins. The first one we had was an actual rebellion pact candidate. That's the populist wing of the Democratic Party. So Richard Ojeda won his race in North Carolina 9 in the primary, and he won it pretty comfortably there, as you can see in the numbers behind him right there. So go support him now. He has a very tough race in a Republican district, but that is winnable. So if Ojeda wins that basically red seat at this point, it's purple to red, right? Which I really, really believe he could win. That'll start to create an earthquake in DC, and certainly the Democrats will have captured Congress if guys like Ojeda win. And then we had someone running for a state seat in Illinois, Junior Ezzano, join us. He's a really dynamic guy, excellent guy, and boom, he won his race, and wanted to make sure that you guys saw that. Now that's a state seat, House of Representatives, District 101 there. So not part of Rebellion Pact, but a good, solid, progressive, populist guy won. And then we interviewed Juliana Stratton for you guys. She was part of actually a debate/discussion we had for that Illinois Senate seat. The one giant AIPAC candidate didn't show up. They weren't likely to get support from us. And of the folks who showed up, Stratton, the lieutenant governor, appeared to be the most progressive. That's the sense that we got from you guys. Now, this one is not a populist candidate. I'm keeping it real. So Juliana does take money from AIPAC, and so it's not a rebellion candidate, not a populist candidate. I'm not vouching and saying she's gonna do the right thing when she goes in the Senate. Of the options we had, she appeared to be the best one. That's kind of what you guys thought. So it's good news. Oh, the big AIPAC candidate in that race got beat by her. So not perfect, but definitely better than the other guy winning. And then good news, we have a new Rebellion Pact candidate now, making number 7, and you saw her on this program before too. Audrey Denny in California 1. It's another red district. Audrey's a hell of a fighter, and I really like talking to her again, and we've talked to her in another race she ran earlier too. She won a carcass competition in high school. So it's a very rural part of California. Anyways, Audrey Denny joins the rebellion, and I love it. And I wanted to make sure that you guys knew about her and supported her in California 1. All right, now let's bring on our guest. David Sirota is one of the best reporters in the country. He runs Lever, he founded that organization, and they've done this brilliant 2 seasons of what they call Master Plan. And season 1 was about money in politics. It's basically the Rosetta Stone of what went wrong in our Politics in America, explained with great detail and enormously convincing. There's no question that it's right. And they have tapes from the old days when they began to rig the system. Master Plan has those guys on tape talking about it. It's amazing. Now season 2 is out. So David, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Cenk. It's good to see you.
No problem, brother. Always good to have you. All right, so David, tell me about season 2. Season 1's about money in politics. What's season 2 about?
So this is basically our audio series in totality is about how did the democracy get so rigged, and who wants to rig the democracy? Why would somebody want to rig the democracy? And the answer is, if you are a very powerful person with lots of money and you have a very unpopular agenda that you want to make reality because it enriches you, the way you're going to do that, season 1 of Master Plan, is you're going to try to legalize corruption so that you can turn the one person, one vote democracy into a $1, one vote democracy. So that's part of the master plan. Another part of the master plan is season 2. You want to concentrate power in as few hands as possible so that all you have to do is buy one office ultimately. And that office, the presidency, if power is concentrated in that office at an unprecedented level, all you really have to do is win that office, and you don't really have to care about any of the other races in the country. So season 2 is about how the presidency became a king. It's called season 2 Master Plan, The Kingmakers. And the point of it is to tell the story about how if you think Donald Trump has created the imperial presidency, this story actually shows you what really happened, that Donald Trump is more the culmination, or really the coronation, of a 50-year plan to aggressively concentrate power inside of the White House, to assert that not just the White House as a whole, but that one person who occupies the office of president is the sole controller of the entire federal government. And so this is the story of how that happened.
So why do they want all that power in one guy? Is the idea it's easier to buy one guy than it is to buy 535 people?
Absolutely. So in the battle over executive power between the White House and Congress, it's much harder to buy all of or most of Congress. These members of Congress have to go back to their districts every 2 years and actually talk to their communities, their constituents. If you can concentrate all the power in the White House and have the president simply dictate policy without having to bother with Congress, with the courts, with governors, with state legislatures, then it's a much easier project to get what you want. And I think what we have to understand is that this story starts back in the Watergate and post-Watergate era. The original scandal of Watergate was originally seen as a scandal of a presidency that's gotten out of control, executive power out of control. Not just a president who used his power to break into his opponent's offices and the like, but at the same time, the president was using his power to, Richard Nixon campaigns on ending the Vietnam War. Months later, he is secretly behind Congress's back expanding that war into Cambodia. Richard Nixon, one of the first fights, this will sound familiar to people. Richard Nixon, one of the first fights that he had was over budget impoundment. He simply decided to say, I'm not going to spend money that Congress has already passed laws forcing me to spend. He cut off funding for instance, roads in the Midwest. There were roads that were being built, and he just stopped funding them even though Congress had passed the funding. The point in bringing this up is, if this all sounds familiar, that's because it started back in the Nixon presidency. And what's important to remember is back then, an assertive Congress said, hey, wait a minute, no. This is not acceptable that Congress passed the War Powers Act. Congress actually passed an amendment defunding the Vietnam War, saying no funds could be spent to continue the war in Southeast Asia. Congress passed the Budget Impoundment Act, saying a president can't do that. But of course, between that point and today, the conservative movement focused in on what ultimately became known as the unitary executive theory. This idea that a president could actually cite the Constitution, an anti-monarch document, obviously, but cite the Constitution as a way to say Congress has no right and the courts have no right to regulate what the president does.
So I want to connect this to war a little bit because I'm trying to get to motivations, right? So these days we talk a lot about the Israeli lobby and the neocons that push for the Iraq war, the Iran war. But there were guys like John Bolton and Dick Cheney there that really believed in the unitary executive theory. And I remember talking about it on the Young Turks 20 years ago in the middle of the Iraq war, and I was livid over it, right? And so their agenda wasn't just about war. It certainly wasn't just about Israel. It was broader. So, but what I'm trying to get at there, David, and this is a question I really don't know the answer to, is who are these guys? So why does Dick Cheney and John Bolton want the president to have this unitary power, this sole power? And they could be using the wars, et cetera, as almost an excuse to get the president those kind of powers. Who are they and what's their actual motivations?
So it's a great question. I would certainly say when you bring up Dick Cheney as an example, on national security, the neocons and the conservative movement generally has long believed that the president has the power to conduct military and foreign policy in any way they see fit. This has been a pet project. This was a big pet project of Dick Cheney. By the way, going all the way back to the Ford administration when Dick Cheney was the chief of staff for Gerald Ford, going back to the Iran-Contra situation, when Dick Cheney was the most senior member of the Republican minority on the Iran-Contra report, where the minority views of that, and if folks don't remember that scandal, it was a scandal about whether whether the president had followed a congressionally passed law to prohibit the use of military funding for covert operations in Central America. That was at the center of the Iran-Contra scandal. Dick Cheney's minority report really tried to blame Congress, saying Congress shouldn't have ever and really has no real right to pass those kinds of laws that constrain a president's power in national security. So I think on national security side, it is really an ideological view that the president does have to and has the right to act as effectively a king. Now, I think that obviously also then expands to the domestic side. And where you really saw that originally take shape, and this is one of the most exciting parts of our series, Master Plan, is we unearth for the first time the documents in which inside of the Reagan administration, under Attorney General Ed Meese and people like John Roberts, Sam Alito, who are working for Ed Meese inside of the Reagan Justice Department, they are trying to grab back executive power on domestic policy making because they had a Democratic Congress and they didn't like the Democratic Congress was making it hard for Ronald Reagan to do what Ronald Reagan wanted to do. And so there were these big fights over whether the president could fire commissioners on independent agencies that Ronald Reagan didn't like, right? Ronald Reagan was not a huge fan of tough antitrust enforcement at the Federal Trade Commission. There was a big fight over whether Ronald Reagan could fire the commissioners. And so all of this sort of came together under Ed Meese inside of his Justice Department. And we found the original documents where they start articulating, they start saying, you know what, we're negotiating over whether this or that congressionally passed statute allows the executive branch to do things. Hold on a second. Why don't we start making a constitutional argument? Why don't we start looking at Article 2 of the Constitution? One simple line that most people who read the Constitution can kind of pass over just says, you know, the executive power essentially is vested in a president. That's all it really says. And the conservative movement came up with this idea that this one line in Article 2, the vesting clause, is essentially the constitutional rationale that the president does not have to follow most laws that the Congress says apply to the executive branch. That their argument is essentially if the president is the sole executor over the executive branch, then anything that Congress passes to tell the executive branch what to do is unconstitutional. In other words, they pioneered an argument that stops saying Congress gave us the power or didn't give us the power and starts saying Congress has no right to regulate our power at all.
Yeah, so I get why they would want to start wars, and this would, make it way easier to start wars. You just need one guy. Passing it through Congress is very difficult. The presidents, on the other hand, love wars. They are constantly starting wars. I get why they'd want that power over Congress. For example, especially back in the day, with Congress trying to regulate a business, you don't want your business regulated, so you just have the president, which is much easier to purchase again, eliminate the regulations. And then Donald Trump recently, for example, with the tariffs, was like, no, I don't have to listen to the courts. I have or Congress. No, they don't have the right to tax. I have the right to tax, which is just not true, right? It's not in the Constitution. So, but still, all those things are the explanation of what happened, and they're indisputably correct, right? And you've got the evidence and master plan that shows where it came from, how they executed it, etc. But David, I thought when the right wing was talking about a deep state, I thought it was kind of absurd, right? But now we've seen, no, there are many things inside the government where they don't even listen to the president, right?
For sure.
Yeah, and so now, and that's true in both parties. And we have all these guys who are pushing the power structure towards one man, right? You combine those and you realize, yes, there are people who work in the shadows. But who are they? Like what? Like, is it one group? Is it a congregation of different groups for different purposes trying to grab power? Is it like a league of corruption that thinks, we concentrate the power and it'll be easier for the oil companies, pharma, foreign governments, whoever, to all be able to purchase the president?
Well, I think what you're getting at is that this power has been a conservative cause because the conservative movement has assumed that the Democrats will never use the same power for the Democrats' stated and purported agenda. So what we've really seen is a trend of Republicans using concentrated executive power for their whole agenda, and Democratic presidents, in many cases, using that concentrated executive power for things like the drone war that Obama prosecuted so aggressively, but not necessarily aggressively using that executive power for populist economic causes. I mean, we have a whole episode, I should mention, in the series all about the Obama era, and I don't want to give it away, but one of the through lines there is that Obama was very comfortable using aggressively executive power for national security and military operations, the drone war being one of them, surveillance, et cetera, but was very tepid in using executive power to do things that he could have done that he refused to do, like, for instance, close the private equity tax loophole through an IRS regulation, or require corporations to disclose their dark money spending on elections, which could have been done through the Securities and Exchange Commission. The point is that the way the Democrats have used executive power often has been in a way that does not offend big money. Now, I will say, the Biden administration, when you look at some of its independent agencies, the FTC, the CFPB, the SEC, there was a moment where the Biden administration, for the first time in really anyone's memory, where a Democratic president started using executive authority to try to champion a set of populist economic rules or economic regulations, et cetera. And what was interesting, Cenk, was that the same conservative movement that so often argues for executive authority suddenly was storming into court saying, how dare the Biden administration use its executive authority for this? And I think what the takeaway there is that parties like executive authority when it's their executive. And it goes back to this paradigm of I guess people like kings when it's their king, and they say no king when it's the opposition's king. And I think a huge question moving forward from all of this, if the Democrats ever get back the White House again, will be, what should the Democrats do? All of this power has now been concentrated in the White House. The president is now effectively immune, as the Supreme Court ruled. Should the Democrats use their power to relinquish that power, restore a balance, or should they be using the power that was concentrated in the White House, whether they wanted it to be concentrated there or not? Should that power be used aggressively to deliver on their promises? And I think that's a huge, huge question.
Yeah, I have the answer to that question, but I might
please.
I might want to tell you in 2032 or 2036, depending on how things go. But okay, so let's break this down. Bear with me here because I have a theory.
Okay.
And so, look, you mentioned the conservative movement, and it kind of is the conservative movement, and it kind of isn't, right? Because conservatives thought that they were against war. Right, and depending on who the personality is, yeah, they switch around. Some do, some don't. But principled conservatives like Thomas Massie and shockingly Marjorie Taylor Greene, et cetera, know that it was an anti-war position, right? And then they say that they're for the Constitution. So a lot of the things that the leaders of the conservative movement do are not necessarily on behalf of the conservative voters. They're just have their own agenda, right? And you and I have criticized both parties maybe more than any two people in the country. And that's why we're kind of universally hated in Washington, which I'm very proud of. And I'm proud that you're also hated. So, and to your point about Obama and Clinton, so Obama ordered drone strikes on US citizens without judicial authority. It was one of the most egregious violations of the US Constitution, one of the most egregious cases of unitary executive power, right? It's just totally unacceptable. And Clinton deregulated almost all of corporate America, right? So, okay, now this leads to my theory, which is that it's actually not any one group that's doing this. It's not Skull and Bones, it's not this or that. It's the invisible hand of the market, that money flows to strong Republican politicians and weak Democratic politicians, so that when a Republican politician is in office, they will use everything that they can in the unitary executive theory and do as much as they can for business interests, corporate interests, foreign governments, et cetera. And then when a Democrat comes in office, they continue to do the abuses in foreign policy because the donors, the money that flows there wants that. But when it comes to economic issues, they're like, oh golly gee, there's just nothing I could do, because that's where the money flowed to weak Democrats. What do you think?
That's absolutely right. I completely agree. I mean, we're saying the same thing, and I think your theory is right, is that corporate America, the people who have turned elections into auctions, as we describe in season 1 of Master Plan, want strong Republican executives in the presidency to use executive power for both the national security agenda and Republicans' economic agenda. And what they preference in Democratic primaries are candidates who will do the same thing effectively on national security, foreign policy, and who will not use executive authority to actually deliver on the promises that those Democratic candidates are often making on the campaign trail. And the problem with this, among other things, is not just that the Democratic presidents end up betraying their campaign promises. It's that when they betray those campaign promises, when they turn hope and change, if you will, into more of the same on economics, that creates a disillusionment among voters that ends up benefiting the next Republican candidate who says, I understand that you're disillusioned, I will fix that, which of course is what happened with Trump. That became his rationale for authoritarianism. Look, we've had all these years of everyone being promised things, the government not delivering. I promise you one thing, I'm a man of action, I will deliver. Now, he's delivering tons of stuff that I obviously disagree with vehemently on economics, on foreign policy. But the point is that the voter ends up in a disillusioned state, being more willing to vote for what they perceive as action.
Yeah. So, well, that goes to the last thing, which is to answer your question. Look, if I'm ever in a position where I could give advice to the president and they would at least consider it, what I would advise them to do is use this power on behalf of the American people. And if you use it enough, the wealthy and the powerful interests will then be motivated to take the power away from you. And so that would be a win-win. We'd use it for the American people for as long as we could until rich folks got mad enough that they took the power away and then we'd think mission accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think that there's a potential rebalancing that would happen. I mean, here's the thing. The reason you haven't seen Congress be assertive towards Donald Trump's power grabs, it's not just because it's Donald Trump's party. It's because big money is getting out of the White House right now what it wants, and big money does not want an assertive Congress when it comes to checking the power of Donald Trump. Now, here's obviously the problem. The problem is that when Democratic presidents, let's use the drone war as an example. When Democratic presidents make the case for the right to, let's say, assassinate US citizens, that is creating the legal rationale for Donald Trump to do those, for instance, those boat attacks in the Caribbean, right? Like you don't want to concede power to a White House if you can imagine your opponent using that power for exactly the opposite of what you say you're for. That's what the danger really is here. And frankly, to go all the way back to the founders, that's what the founders really understood, right? They understood, I think, I mean, they got a lot of things wrong, right? But the Constitution, I think, appreciates the idea that you actually want a little bit of a dispersion of power. You want power to be a little bit diffuse. You don't necessarily want all the power in the hands of one person who, as we're now living through, who can wake up one day and decide at this point, because there's been so much power concentrated in the White House, that can wake up one day and start basically World War III without not only not getting a congressional authorization, but in not having to get a congressional authorization, doesn't even have to make a public case for this war. Like that's exactly what you do not want and what the Constitution was set up to prevent. And look, to be clear, I think the Congress still has a very strong argument that this war is illegal, it is unauthorized, and it should assert itself. But if we allow wars, as to go back to that issue, to be started where just without any public case, without any authorization at all, that is exactly what the Constitution was designed to prevent against.
Yep. All right, tell us where people can catch Master Plan.
So go on your phone right now. If you're watching this, go on your phone, go into your podcast app, just type in Master Plan and subscribe, hit that subscribe button, download the first episode. If you don't have a podcast app, go to the website, it's right there, masterplanpodcast.com, masterplanpodcast.com. And if you're there, give us a rating, leave us a comment if you like it, if you hate it, whatever. All of that really helps get the word out about this series.
Yeah, I did it, and I would just say to you guys, if you can listen to Master Plan 1 and 2, both seasons, please, because it gives you the context you need. Money corrupting politics, and then it flowing to one guy so that it makes it easier to do the corruption. And also check out The Lever. Great reporting there. All right, David Sirota, thank you so much, brother. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks, Cenk. I really appreciate it.
No problem. All right, guys, here's what we're gonna do next. For the members, I'm gonna read some of your comments left over from the show because I wanna address some of those things. This is when we interact a little bit. And if you have any questions for me, if you're a member, ask me through the chat, and I'll try to answer it for you in the members only. So if you're not a member, the show is going to end in a couple of seconds when I tell you. If you are a member, you don't have to change anything. The stream will just continue, and I'll just do the bonus episode for you guys. So for the non-members, we love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. And boom, members, here you are. The stream didn't change. Look at that, I told you, amazing. See, we've got all the technology worked out now, as Ali G would say. Okay, so